and welcome back to the Awakening Philosophy Podcast. My name is Jed. We have been doing a lot of work in this book. We are about a lot of play because it's fun. We are about 90-something episodes in, and this book bangs so much. Perhaps the greatest book. It certainly refers to what is considered to be the greatest book never read, Plato's Parmenides, as well as bringing into whole the history of philosophical thought with about 10 key names and then you. That's pretty awesome. And it's a conversation between two of the biggest influences over, well, Western civilization. Socrates, a champion for understanding, and Jesus, someone who is a personification of belief. We've been doing a lot of work in creating maps. Well, as we just said, the map of philosophy. Somebody came on this channel recently in the chat and said, oh, this what you're doing here, is this Plato? And that's kind of a misnomer because there is no real Platonic philosophy. If you use your mind to know the mind, you'll recreate Plato. I think the response to the guy was, oh no, we're just thinking about thinking. We're using our understanding to nail down what exactly understanding is. We will recreate a lot of Plato because what we are doing is understanding and not belief. What we are taught in school is that philosophy is a matter of belief. And if you've ever seen any philosophers on YouTube or done any philosophy classes at college, you've seen it's a professor or a spokesperson or a podcaster using quotes from philosophers to justify his own personal beliefs that he got from childhood. It's just that. It's the love of opinion. But that's not philosophy. That's the opposite of philosophy. Using our mind to know our mind. And that's what we've been doing. So we've got a lovely map of how within this game of knowing the self, we have Homer around 800 or a bit even earlier BC, describing people who have gone through this process to do two things: purify their ignorance and perfect their wisdom, reaching the ideal, and representing that those forces in that process, the forces of reality, and the journey of individual souls through that process, the hero's journey, the hero's quest, representing that with key figures Hercules and Penelope, the ideal man and the ideal woman who've reached the end. We have the earliest philosopher who's written stuff down that we have, Xenophanes, who said, by the way, it's the whole of God that's seeing, hearing, and thinking right now. His student Parmenides taught Socrates and said, by the way, you'll never reach the truth unless you master the art of understanding, the dialectic. Diotima came in and said, by the way, a truly loving relationship has this quest in mind. The union of love and understanding together in your relationship is the ideal and can take you on that journey of the dialectic, the journey of understanding, to reach the truth of reality, the highest experience of beauty, and beyond that, to the cause even of that. So, two models of excellence. One of the mind knowing itself and the experience of the truth of reality, self knowing itself and the highest experience of self, and then the stage beyond that, its cause, the self. Not the experience of self, but the self. Not the greatest qualities of reality, but that which is qualityless, and its cause. So all of this is from this conversation being had between Socrates and Jesus. Oh, and we have a new follower. Thank you for joining. All right.
Oh boy, that is a little weird.
It's a little weird. No, it's not. It's fantastic.
That one's perfect and exactly the
Perfect.
case.
It's exactly the case that you should be following. So, Diotima and Parmenides taught Socrates. He said, hey, by the way, this process of purifying your false beliefs about self and reality that will block you from reading, from seeing, from learning, and perfecting the true understanding and direct experience of reality and self. So, two models, self and reality, and either its real version or its lesser version or its distortion in beliefs and images. Hey, you can't go through that process, the quest of all sentient beings, unless you're also applying this skill of understanding the dialectic to unpacking your dreams. You'll get specific content about your unsuspected false beliefs of self and reality through your dreams. And you'll get guidance in your reading that you need to be doing to perfect your understanding from your dream master as well. And we've been reflecting through this text on the fact that you can gain all three levels. You can have negative states of mind that reflect your false beliefs of self and reality. You can have high states of mind or insight or luminous states of mind that reflect the first model of excellence, mind itself, eternity, the greatest whole of the greatest parts. And you even get clear states of being that even transcends that, a whole without even parts. So all three bases are covered in your dreams. And we're able to understand that because we've been doing a lot of work in building a map of, well, understanding. Because everything in understanding involves wholes and parts. Everything that you've understood it as the same as something, but different in that it's a different thing. It's like other things in that it's a thing, but it's also unlike to make it the particular thing you've been understanding. In other words, we've been looking at the fact that there is a duad or a pair of terms or a set of different pairs of terms that we use for understanding. And we can build it into a map. Lots of thumbs up. A Venn diagram. If there are two things, whole and part, same and different, they can't be the same thing. Otherwise, they wouldn't be different. There wouldn't be an unfolding. There wouldn't be an understanding. So there's a Venn diagram where the two come together and overlap. Same and different come together. Whole and parts come together. But there has to be an element of that Venn diagram, which is the whole that isn't touched by parts to make it whole. And part that isn't whole. In other words, they're two different things, meaning they can't completely overlap, otherwise they'd be the same thing. We're building a map, we're building a model of understanding. Looks something like this. So here are our pairs of terms that we bring into a oneness. By the way, they're called selfers because we're looking at them themselves as nouns, whole itself, part itself, or as the Greeks would say, self-whole, self-part, not as we experience them as adjectives in the physical world. We're looking at the map for understanding, not how we apply it to physical things. So we're using our mind to turn around to the model or map which exists in being. That's metaphysics, that's actual philosophy. Anything else, that's not philosophy. Literally. Oh, and what's theology? All of these things that we are nailing down and understanding that we use for understanding, personified as characters in a story. So the mythology, to talk about, to explain, to remember, to tell your friends about, all of these aspects of being, sometimes called eidos, the aspects of being, mistranslated at college as forms, Plato's forms, boo. So these aspects of being, that's the model or map for understanding, mythologized into story, that's theology. Theology. The study of the theos, or the deos, or God, or the divine. Because this is being. It's eternal. It's immortal. It's the cause of understanding. It's the divine. By the way, the Greeks had a term for people who took those stories literally. There's actually a guy with a white beard in the sky. They called them barbarians, by the way. So whole, part, same, different, all of these are things you use to understand things. So you could make them a Venn diagram. Like that. Whole and part and an overlap. That's what we've been building. But because this is the model or map or paradigm, it doesn't just apply to understanding, it applies to everything we experience. Everything you've experienced has been a whole or parts, has been the same and different than something, has been like and unlike. Everything you've experienced has either been at rest or in motion, etc. So from this map that we are using our understanding to see and understand, which is the model of understanding, allowing us to perfect our understanding by seeing the map of understanding, also applies to dimensions of reality. Because if there are different dimensions that exist, they have to be wholes or parts of wholes. Same and different in that they're dimensions, different in that they're different dimensions. So in this Venn diagram, where we have the lesser term, part, any of those pairs, and the greater term and an overlap, we can recognize that this section here, that's the part that isn't whole, we can call the physical world of becoming. The part where whole and parts overlap, we can use to understand the metaphysical world of being. Theology is the study of that. And then we can wonder about this part that's the whole that isn't even touched by parts, transcending everything else in experience, everything we've seen or experienced or understood that refers to either being or becoming, mind or the physical. It has to transcend all that because it's not even touched by parts. So it's without qualities, but it's still a whole. It's without differences, different qualities, but it's still same. So same and different. Like and unlike. It's like itself, but there is no part unlike itself. Rest and motion. It's completely at rest, but in a way that can never be in motion because it transcends motion. It's out of time, but not like this way is out of time, not like that first model of mind is out of time, in that it's eternity, in that it's the map for everything that unfolds in time. It's the whole of all of the parts. So it's not the map for everything in time. It's out of time in a unique way where it doesn't even touch. It's that part of the Venn diagram. And so, because out of all of those pairs of terms that we use for understanding, the very, very first term, The very first distinction you make in understanding or experiencing anything is self and other. The first distinction you make is, hey, this chicken, it's not myself, it's other than me. Look at it.
Dead-eyed, and I don't use this kind of terminology lightly, dimwits.
He's not a dimwit.
Disgusting. I'm so disgusted.
Disgusting that you say that. This chicken is other than me, so when I'm hungry, I don't feed the chicken.
Do a poggers.
And we do a poggers, says Emma from the Majority Report. So, we can take all of these pairs that are the building blocks of understanding, perception, reality, and rank them hierarchically. That's understanding. And on top of that hierarchy, we can say self and other. So, if we have the world of becoming, we could call that the lesser. The world of physical experience, becoming, because everything is coming into be or decaying. Nothing stays permanent in the physical world. And then we have the forces of the world of being that are needed for the physical world, but those are the things that do stay constant. It would be weird if you had two apples, you had an apple and a pear, 1 + 1, so you had two pieces of fruit, and you ate the apple, and by taking away this one, suddenly 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2 anymore. Well, that's a weird one. How about this? You had something beautiful, but then you broke it, a beautiful painting, then your dog ate it. It would be weird if all of a sudden beauty itself, as the noun, as the principle, became less beautiful. In other words, there have to be eternal principles that apply to the physical world. That's the realm of being. Therefore, it's experienced when you're able to separate your soul or psyche from your physical senses and awaken the sixth sense called Usia. The eye of the soul, it's called. So here we have a soul with a wings. Get M. Night Shyamalan on the phone, because it's the sixth sense.
Hey man, wouldn't some kind of future where people have all their whatever basic needs met of shelter, all this crap, and they could do whatever the hell they want, wouldn't that be good? No, it wouldn't.
It wouldn't? Come on.
Are you just blowing from Stupid Town?
Did you just blow him from Stupid Town? Of course it would be good. And as good as that joke was about the sixth sense. So the physical world of becoming, the world of being, and of course that second model of reality, the ultimate reality. Ultimate reality or self, because that's the highest of those pairs of terms to describe it. Which is great, because our job is to know the self. If whatever you're doing does not lead to or involve directly knowing the self, then you're doing something that is not meaningful by definition. Hey, you're a self. Don't you want to know what it is? When you wake up and if you played a video game and you didn't know which character was you, or what you're supposed to be doing, or what abilities you had, or how to win the game, wouldn't that be weird? So what we're doing is very normal. It's just uncommon. What is it? Knowing the self. So we've made a map of understanding that, and because it's the map, it also applies to levels of reality. And if you want to be fancy, you can use a fancy word called ontology to impress your friends over coffee. Ontology just means study, and ontos means being. It's the Greek word for being, ontos. So ontology is asking the question, what exists? What dimensions of reality are there? Modern European philosophers draw a line here because they're in the tradition of Aristotle and the Catholic Church. Plato, we have evidence to suggest that Plato reached this level of being. But of course, Socrates talks about going on to this level here. So if you wanted to, just for fun, you could say, this is Aristotelian, this is Platonic, this is Socratic. While keeping in mind that there's still just one philosophy, it's just the map or reality, but you can use these key figures to remember if you want to. So, we've been building this map. It also applies to not only the map, how to perfect our understanding, which is our highest cognitive function that we've evolved into in time, but it can represent the different dimensions of reality, self, being, or mind, and the physical world of becoming. But also it applies to different cognitive functions. So when you're impressing your friends with the word ontology, which means the study of what exists, what dimensions, you can also say, hey, with ontology comes its pair, epistemology. Epistos is the Greek word for knowing. So if there are these three dimensions, how do you know them? For instance, the physical world of becoming we see with our physical senses. So where you can derive opinions based on shapes and colors, or beliefs. What we've been seeing is understanding uses principles. So while a racist or sexist is using the epistemology or cognitive function of belief down here, based on images or appearances, I like that color because it's the same color as my family color. I don't like women because my daddy says blah blah blah, don't trust women. So usually it's inherited through a family clan because that's where you learn to exist, in that box where your parents claim to know things they don't, because everyone wants to be the knower, but very few people do this kind of game to actually gain an understanding and experience of knowing. So, sexist beliefs, racist beliefs, religious beliefs, political beliefs, they're all beliefs. Materialist beliefs, scientific beliefs, they're all beliefs. And they're the cause of our problems. What understanding does is use these universal principles that we've been outlining this map of, up here. Wow.
Wow. Wow. Dead-eyed, and I don't use this kind of terminology.
Bless you. Excuse you. Bless you.
Excuse you for making insult. So, understanding uses those principles that can be used as adjectives to describe things in the physical world and understand even our beliefs. So, what we are doing now is using understanding. What we've identified with this map of understanding is where beliefs exist, as the model here from our physical world, but as it's the lesser or the part that's not whole, it functions to stay separate from the whole. That's why every single belief you have has to function in opposition to understanding. If you understand it for yourself, you don't have to believe anyone else. Even the guy who says that Jesus said so, or Moses said so, or Abraham said so, or Big Daddy politician said so, or any of that fucking horse shit. To them we say,
Disgusting. I'm so disgusted.
so disgusted. And we say,
You have the brain of a child if you think that.
you have the brain of a child, but in a nice way, because we all start there. Literally, we get this from childhood. So we're understanding where all beliefs come from. You have to be in opposition to understanding, otherwise you wouldn't have to believe someone else. So human problems, therefore, we can understand. Why do humans act against their own benefit? Why are there so many people who are right-wing or don't want universal healthcare, universal wealth equality, universal housing, universal everything? Why are there some people who want to hurt people? And why is the people they hurt not their own group, but someone different from their family clan way of being? Oh, easy. Because it's your family clan and their appearances that you are imitating. That's the fake model of knowing. So that's why human beings are sadistic. They think when they hurt people, because belief can't actually help things, understanding can create things, understanding can solve problems, belief can't. So it's the addiction to hurting people while imitating someone who hurt you. Sadism. That's why human beings are cruel and stupid and acting against their own benefit. That's why it's difficult to share what human beings need to solve problems, because what we need to solve problems are the principles. Right? Just like to heal somebody with medicine, you need the principles of medicine. You need to know the model as a whole so we can have a model here in mind, and you also have to know the parts. The name for knowing the model or knowing all at once, the world of mind or the map or the model, the enlightenment, or one of the two enlightenment experiences, is nous for the Greeks, or knowingness we use in English. The brilliant light of being. Separating your soul from the body and experiencing everything all at once, like the movie that's called Everything All at Once. But you can't do much with it unless you have an understanding of it, which is why this use of understanding to reflect upon the model is the best or the full spiritual task. Okay, so understanding then allows us to use that model of reality to see its copy or its lesser imitation, belief. All human beings get a false model of reality and a false model of self that they identify with. That becomes their mask. That stars in all of their problems, all of their dramas, all of their fantasies, all of their daydreams, all of their night dreams, and is the cause of their repeating cycle of problems. And also we can understand why it's a problem, because if it's a false model of mind and self and mind, or mind and reality, reality is being, so reality or self, a false belief about self and reality has to be in opposition to the truth, otherwise you can't be a loyal Jew, or a loyal Catholic, or a loyal Joneses, or a loyal Anderson, or a loyal MAGA, or a loyal Nazi. It's all the same. See how all of these are the cause of human problems and they all have the same essential nature? This is epistemology, same map, but to recognize cognitive functions. So the cognitive functions are just using that map to say, what's the model, what's the whole, and what's its activity, the use of the parts. So now we can understand what wisdom is, knowing the model, which is the oneness, or turning your mind upon itself with that sixth sense. Remember M. Night Shyamalan that we called him earlier today? That's ousia. Now we need to use the Greek word ousia because if you can't name it, you can't use it. Naming is important, which is why you need a language which has these words, otherwise you can't evolve. Why am I saying evolve? Because if this ousia we understand as knowing, and its parts or understanding, true understanding, uses those principles or nouns that we've been nailing down, and the two of them together is wisdom, and its imitation of the model is belief, and its imitation of the activity is to act in opposition to fight against people who say, yes, there is a model of truth. It's called ousia. Or the Greek word for the use of the model is logos, because logos means, well, it is the model. Ousia is the knowing of it. Logos is the nature of it. Language, reason, understandability, knowability. That's the logos. Now, it's difficult to tell human beings that because human beings are taught to be in opposition to self-reflection, ousia, and language, logos. Because their false model of those two things requires you to give up your quest to actually nail them down for yourself, so you can be a follower, a believer, so you can be a member of the tribe, member of the clan, and also be oppressed. The activity we call strict dualism. In other words, there's body and there's mind, but there's no connection. And there are lots of different versions of that. You can't know God, that's heresy. Or an atheist might say, there is no God. Don't give up on knowing eternity. Or a materialist would say, there's only the physical world, we're all just chemicals. Anything beautiful is just a scam made by chemicals in your brain. There is no mind, it's just a brain. So, all of that are versions of the activity in opposition to mind and the self. Which is ironic because they are still using the model, they're just using a false one. They still think, they still have a mask of themselves, it's just not really the self, it's the cause of their problems. That's why we act against our own benefit. Therefore, because this same map of understanding, that also is the map of ontology or dimensions of reality, which we can fit in the different epistemology or cognitive functions, is also the map of evolution. Yay. Because as a species evolves, it moves from the lesser to the greater. Or any species that continues to be in opposition to its own benefit goes extinct and doesn't evolve. Therefore, what we are studying and reading in this book, not studying, having fun, is literally necessary for human beings to wake up to, otherwise we go extinct. If our human laws do not reflect the logos, they do not reflect, therefore, the principles of reality. For instance, if our human laws say, yes, you can poison all of the water in the air on the planet to make profits because capitalism, because I have a belief that my family gets to hurt other people, sadism, the mark of knowingness of a believer. That's why the billionaires are not solving hunger. They want to starve children and bomb children. Sadism, belief. I believe that we get to hurt people for profit. That will only end in human extinction. Because newsflash, even billionaires have to drink clean water. They have to breathe clean air. You can only live in a gated community like a billionaire does, or Joe Rogan little compound for him and his billionaire sadistic right-wing freaks for so long before you go a bit crazy. So, our purpose, evolutionarily speaking, is to move from belief and strict dualism or materialism into understanding and knowingness, or from ignorance, belief in these two, the model and activity based on appearances, shapes and colors, to wisdom. So these are the cognitive functions that we can move through as we evolve. So pretty handy map we've been developing. So wisdom is knowing and understanding. Ignorance is belief in strict dualism or against our benefit. This applies to societies. So, but also, understanding is needed to solve human problems. Right? If your toast is broken and you don't understand why it's broken, and you don't understand how toasters work, you can't pray your way into fixing your toaster. You can't hope and change your way. So, pray is the idea of belief venerated or put on a pedestal because God says so. It's not just my bullshit ass beliefs, it's God's, so I get to force it on everyone. Religion is what religion is. Or politics. It's not just my beliefs that I want to hurt brown people. It's the founding fathers, so I get to force it on everyone, says MAGA and any right-wing fascist. So all human problems individually is this, and collectively is the veneration onto religion or politics. That's it. The two professions where you don't need understanding. Good luck trying to get a job as a surgeon if you don't have an understanding of how to do surgery. Good luck trying to get a job as a mechanic if you don't understand how a engine works. But you can get a job as a politician or a pope if you don't understand shit, because you can just say, well, I believe it, so... Fucking stupid.
Fucking bitch, pussy ass fucker.
Pussy ass fuck. Well said, Oracle. So, that's why it's difficult to share this and why I don't have as many followers as other YouTubers. Because all human beings are in opposition to understanding. Why? Because understanding threatens belief. And human beings are savagely, violently, stupidly loyal to their very cause of their ignorance, their beliefs. Because they grew up in it, and be fucked if they're going to challenge dear mummy and dear daddy. Because if my beliefs are wrong, that means mummy and daddy lied to me. Or, as our sound drop man says,
this guy had to admit that the people in his life who helped convince him to be a conservative in the first place, parents, clergy, other authority figures, were wrong. Not only was wrong, but lied to him, and that he fell for it. All of that takes so much courage and character.
that's why, even though I don't have a lot of followers, I have the best followers. Because it takes courage and character to reflect in this kind of a way. Because you're challenging everything you grew up with. Ignorance. Necessarily, you are evolving, you're becoming better. But you're also becoming different to those ignorant people who raised you. That can be hard to stomach, but here's a good hack. Imagine not your parents, but your next door neighbor's parents. Do you think they know everything? Now imagine the parents who lived across the street. The ones who yelled at their kids, or were maybe alcoholics or something. Do you think they were right about everything all the time? Now you don't think that, but do you think their children do? Yep. Now think of any family in any other country, any religion other than yours, any political group other than yours. Do you think then they know everything? Of course not. Now just one more step. This is understanding. If you can recognize the many are all the same, you can recognize the principle. The next step is applying it to what's meaningful for you. Therefore, even though it feels true that my religion or my parents knew everything, the principle says it's not. That's why it takes courage to sacrifice our ignorance, the thing that's causing our problems that we're loyal to. It takes courage to let that go and allow yourself to be free. So, also, not only the map for understanding, the map for what exists as dimensions of reality, the map for cognitive functions, the map for evolution. So recognizing this is where we are, the current politicians and leaders of having all the money and manipulating all the people through religion are here, this harmful stage called belief. Therefore, the next stage in human evolution is to move from belief into understanding, allowing us to create to use this map to apply it to our world. As belief is to understanding, so too is the right wing or conservatives to progressives or the left. Now, not the establishment left. They're just pretending to be lefters, but actual people who want to understand human problems and understand our excellence and use that understanding to solve problems and bring about a better world. So loosely speaking, as belief is to understanding, so too is the right is to left, so too is religion to what are we using? What are we using to know the truth of self and reality? We're not believing some guy with a big funny hat that's saying we'll go to hell if we don't give him our money and all that other horse shit from religion, to which we say,
Bitch. Would you just blow in from Stupid Town?
Blowing stupid. They just blew all the way in.
Gooners.
Bunch of gooners. What are we using? We're using understanding to reflect on the model of understanding, which gives us the structure or map for understanding that allows us to structure or map out our own understanding in a series of steps. What are the two things we're using? The model and the activity, or the oneness or ousia, self-reflection, and what's our activity? Logos or language. So what are the stages of evolution that we have evolved into, allowing us to have the lesser version of them, cause of human ignorance and barbarism and savagery, but also allowing us, if we evolve, take this next step that we're doing here, to have the excellence of them. Self-reflection and language. That's what distinguishes us as more evolved from caterpillars and goats. The ability to turn about upon our understanding or mind, to use our mind to know our mind, and the activity of understanding it by naming it. If you can't name the parts, you don't see the parts. If you can't explain it, you can't use it. We have to put words on it. That's the activity. So self-reflection and language are our evolved capacities. Ousia and logos are the correct names because there's more than just language. There's reason, there's steps, there's a desire that moves us. So all of these things are involved in logos. And same thing for ousia. It's not just self-reflection, because you can know yourself completely as the model of mind knowing itself. That's enlightenment or nous, or knowing with a capital K. So, as belief is to understanding, so too ignorance is to wisdom. So too human suffering is to the ability to solve human suffering. So too is human savagery to human excellence or utopia. So too, as belief is to understanding, the right wingers are to the true left wingers. So too, religion is to, what are we doing? What's the true model of spirituality? Not belief. That's the cause of our suffering. The skillful, and because it benefits, we could say artful, because art is a skill that benefits for the Greeks. Artful use of understanding to make use of ousia and logos. What's that called? That's the dialectic. The dialectic. So as religion is to the dialectic. Whoops. So a pretty handy map. So this is all from the text. And we've only been able to see all this because we've been reading without interpretation. So it's not, what does this book mean to you? Or how can you use this book to justify your own beliefs? That's modern philosophy, the love of opinions. That's debate. I'm right because Kant says this, and Hegel says this, and Nietzsche says this, and the founding fathers says this, and this religion says this, and Abraham says this, and Moses says this. Who gives a fuck? You're just quoting authority figures to justify whatever beliefs you already have. That's modern psychology, that's modern philosophy, that's modern academia. That's also why we can't solve any problems. We still live in a terribly unequal society. Where's our universal principles? Where's our universal healthcare, universal income, universal housing? It's easy. Just throw the word universal in front of everything and you understand how to have a just society. Why? Because understanding universally applies. That's what it means to care for your species. Otherwise, you'll be at war with your own species. Capitalists, fascists, sexists, racists. Therefore, we understand our evolutionary purpose, but also the purpose of our species, to bring about the principles of understanding that are of reality, to make our human laws reflect the principles of reality. Otherwise, we'll blow up the world or our species go extinct. If our laws are not in harmony with the laws of nature, the laws of reality. But also at the same time, while we implement that, we have to surface all of the many different, so here is same and difference. All human problems are the same in principle. It's just beliefs from childhood. That's it. And that's nothing other than a false belief of reality and self. Because you didn't have the dialectic when you were little and you were stuck with those people. It's a kind of survival mechanism. And because we live in a society ruled by those people, those ignorant people, then we don't have the dialectic at school every day. This would be true education. So while all human problems are the same, the purpose of our species is to surface all of the particular, all of the different kinds of clan beliefs, the Nazis, just pick them. The Protestants, the Anglicans, the Jews, the Hebrew, just pick. There's a whole long line of individual clan beliefs that say our group is the good group. We get to rule and we get to genocide the other group. We get to enslave the other group. We get to oppress the other group. Always the same. Our job is to surface all of them, because when we say, hey, we don't want to, murder children for already billionaires to get even more billions, that's fucking stupid. Let's have universal housing and income and universal equality and universal etc. All of these clan beliefs will stick their hand up and say, excuse me, I object. Our job is to say, good, let's nail down. What's your objection? Can you see how it's irrational against the benefit of you and the society and the species? Now, let's trace it back to why you've been convinced about something being true and just when it's in opposition to truth and justice. That's your sickness, but we need to trace its causes back so we don't have a society that trains or grows sick human beings. That's our job. That's the job of any species at this level of evolution. Right, if every time you cook noodles, you walk away with scalded hands, you have to look, okay, what was I doing when I made the noodles that caused my hand to be scalded? I kept picking up the pan from the stove with my bare hands. Now I need to buy some stove gloves so I don't scald myself. In other words, if you have people in this certain conditions, you give birth to, or you train Nazis, you train genocidal Jews, you train Catholics that do the Crusades, you train sexists that think that they're big, strong, tough guys for oppressing women. You train ICE, KKK, Gestapo thugs that murder brown people because they're idiots. In other words, yes, they're idiots, but there's a cause for their idiocy. They're not idiots in nature. They are fantastic students to terrible teachers, and that's our job, to surface all of the clan beliefs in opposition to what's good. Which will come out because one of the principles of reality is, as you introduce a new truth, there is a counter attack or a counter force from the old way of being. What we're hoping to do is add to our map, because if it's the map that if it explains all understanding, it explains wisdom, it explains ignorance, it explains evolution, it explains the purpose of our species, it explains cognitive functions. Hopefully, we'll be able to fit in this map of all maps all of the different kinds of counterattacks against truth that human beings can have. So we can introduce this necessary truth safely, without getting banned from Emma's Twitch chat from some I shouldn't say that word. From some stupid ass Twitch moderator.
Disgusting. I'm so disgusted.
Disgusting.
If you're experiencing a mental health episode, we don't want to have to
We don't
see
want
that.
to have to see the mental health episode of the people in opposition to introduce it to understanding.
Would you just blow in from Stupid Town?
People who've blowed in from Stupid Town.
These absolute dullards, borderline chimps, want to kiss a fox.
When they just want to kiss a fox. They just want to kiss Emma. That's all they want to do, probably. So, Universal, everyone, by the way, what we have seen is it's this dialectic, this skill and art of understanding, perfected by using your understanding to know the model of understanding, which requires you to read a text written by someone who's got there already. That's why we read the books we read. That's why we read the Balboa version of translation of Socrates or Pierre Grimes' books. These are people who've mastered this already. And they've given us puzzles so we can master it ourselves. We're not believing them, but we have to be reading the right kind of thing. It's that use of dialectic in an activity called philosophical midwifery that is needed necessarily because it's the activity of purifying our false beliefs. So we will act in opposition to our own benefit and in opposition to what benefits our human race, unless we go through philosophical midwifery, which is nothing other than understanding used to understand the root cause of our problems and remove them. So there's two things we get. By understanding the model of understanding, the map that we've got here, we perfect our understanding, and also it's the spiritual method, so we open ourselves up for experiences of ourselves eternally, to know the immortality of your own consciousness, which also perfects your activity of understanding, so you can have great relationships like Diotima explained, and help other people in their quests to know the nature of reality. But you also get the ability to use that map of understanding to ask questions that facilitate self-reflection or ousia, as well as logos or language. Those two things we need to employ: language and self-reflection, logos and ousia. What does that? Questions, a specific series of questions that surfaces that model, and you can compare it to the true model to help people recognize they're carrying a false model of what you have been able to nail down in your proper use of understanding. So you can perfect your own excellence and purify your ignorance. It's a win-win.
It's a win-win-win-win-win.
Win-win-win-win-win. So, pretty neat map. Then we went ahead and realized, hang on a second, we won't be able to make sense of this map and how we can use it individually and collectively to solve all human problems and reach our excellence unless we have certain keywords. If you don't have the word ousia and logos, you're going to miss a lot. You can get away with things like model and activity, and you can get away for a little bit of time using the word self-reflection and language. But there's more to Usia than just self-reflection. It's actually the essence of mind itself. It's the nature of mind itself, and you'll miss that. Just like there's more to language than just logic. You'll miss all those things. So you need those two. And by the way, not only are they necessary terms to identify the stages of cognitive development and evolution, they're also questions. So what we've been learning is the true method or activity or spiritual method or playing the video game that you're born into properly is to surface questions that put you in that open, curious states of mind. Because belief, which is the cause of our ignorance and suffering and problems, is a kind of certainty. I remember going to the Majority Report after I was banned from the Twitch chat. I went to the YouTube and said, hey, I agreed with Emma and introduced a word that she was looking for, and I got banned. What the fuck? And then the YouTube guys, we're different moderators. Oh, okay. It's weird though. You should probably have a look into why a channel whose whole ethos is let's reflect and understand and even talk to experts and learn new things, the Majority Report, the whole essence of the fucking show. Why do you have Twitch moderators that are acting in exact opposition to that? Just because this fucker doesn't understand, he wants to just ban someone without even talking or understanding or learning? Ignored by those other moderators. But then they said, I can't remember what there was another, they asked something and I said, hey, by the way, all I was doing was agreeing with Brendan and Emma and pointing out the next, the model needed to not just identify problems, but solve problems. And the YouTube moderator's response was, oh no, I feel like we already know how to solve all the problems.
Dude, suck my dick.
Dude. How open would they be to learning what's needed to solve human problems if they already think they know? And human beings are attracted to positions of power, even if it's a little bit of power like a fucking Twitch or YouTube moderator, or a lot of power like an American president, where they can play out that false certainty belief with impunity. In other words, human beings want positions of power over others so they can cosplay the knower while acting against their own learning and benefit. That's sadism, because it also involves hurting people who are trying their best. Cruelty, which is nothing other than imitating the same kind of injustice they suffered from their own parents. Therefore, we can see the necessity for philosophical midwifery to go through a series of structured questions that engage their self-reflection and naming or logos to identify who they are imitating when they hurt others or block others and themselves. Everyone has a block. There are some people who are really exceptional and it takes a long time for their block to come in. They have to be doing some really, really deep and meaningful stuff. And until they reach that top echelon, they're very open and to learning and reflecting. There are some really rare people who are exceptional in that. But a lot of people, the majority, don't give two shits about ever reflecting on anything. Certainty. The imitation of knowingness. Think about how certain countless religious wars or political wars, countless human beings must have had to feel justified in murdering a human being. Not just that they're right, but they're also right that you can't solve problems with understanding, when of course you fucking can. If all problems are from ignorance, and ignorance is solved with wisdom, understanding and knowing, then problems in principle can be solved. So imagine how certain you would have to be of your own ignorance to reject all of that, to kill another person to solve a problem. That's the human condition. So what we are learning is how to engage an individual's own ousia and logos to engage in spam.
Further fill the internet with spam and AI slop.
AI slop on my Twitch chat.
You need to
chat.
flood these platforms with fake people. This is an AI guy.
You're an AI guy. And we say...
Just shut the fuck up forever. Just shut the fuck up. Just forever.
Just forever.
This is an AI guy. I hate to have to tell you this. That was fake. That was AI.
So, making use of our ousia faculty to self-reflect and use language through a series of questions, that's the dialectic. It's just that simple. Now notice, at the beginning of our journey, we've been asking the question, what is a philosopher? Socrates says, many are the staff bearers, but the only true mystics are philosophers. What does that involve? We talk about being on the hero's journey. This is the archetype. It's not only the map of all those other things, it's the map of the hero's journey. Be it Harry Potter, Luke Skywalker, Frodo Baggins, you name it, they are following, well, maybe not all, but there is an inherent map of the hero's journey that they're going through. This is the archetype. This is the real thing. And to explain it, we talk about, imagine you're in a video game. In your inventory, you're collecting questions. You've got a question sack. But as you develop these questions, they're not just questions, you also, well they are, but you also do your best to create a hypothesis. You don't identify with any individual hypothesis. You see what pans out. Carry a whole bunch, and as you continue to read and you continue to see more, you'll see certain hypotheses raised to the surface as being better explanations of what you're seeing. Ifs. So Q's and ifs. Those are the two things. And you could say, well, that sounds a lot like questions seem to be a state of mind. Sounds like ousia. And ifs, hypotheses, that's where we apply the dialectic. That sounds a lot like logos. So these are the two principles: state of mind and understanding, knowing and understanding, ousia and logos, questions and ifs. No, it's not answers, because you don't know until you... This is the thing, because it's a spiritual thing. In other words, you can separate from your physical senses and experience these. You can validate your hypotheses. It ain't just a belief, son. And by the way, that's all we can take with us. I've been reflecting on through this book that not only is this a map for all those things we've mentioned, understanding, and then everything that exists and is perceived, and also ontology or dimensions, but also epistemology or cognitive states, and also evolution individually and collectively. It's also a map for reincarnation. Because we have a self and we have mind attached to a body, and for there to be justice, there has to be a reason why we experience ignorance and suffer the ignorance of other people. We suffer injustices in this world all the time. Every minute somebody's going through terrible kinds of injustices. Therefore, for there to be the kind of intelligence we can see in reality, there has to be a fairness, and there has to be an opportunity to learn from our experience and escape the cycle of injustice, just as we are learning to escape the cycle of ignorance, belief in materialism, ignorance, and reach wisdom, knowing and understanding, ousia itself and logos itself. So too can we escape the ignorance and injustice of our physical incarnation. And when we die, we experience the brilliant light of being. We want to go into it in greater depth because that will affect the kind of character that we have in our reincarnation. And the only thing that we can take with us after our death, we can't take our physical things, but we can take the kind of learning we've been doing and the kind of nurturing of our soul that we've been doing, that our learning has been affected. So they're two different things, but they're together. Just like logos and ousia, just like questions and ifs. The nurture would be the questions, that open, curious, wondering state of mind and holding a question at all times. Ifs is our use of understanding, our learning, the dialectic that we can apply to those questions. So it's also a map for reincarnation and the meaning of life. So the art of the dialectic, which makes use of those questions and ifs, has to be the meaning of life, because that's the only two kinds of qualities we can bring with us. Can't take your physical things or your ego or your Bugattis. But here's the thing about the map. It doesn't just explain everything we have experienced. It should also be predictive or give us a map of where we haven't yet gone. So if the human condition has been a battle between, same map, let's move over to where we have, here we go, ignorance, belief and strict dualism, the model and activity from the lesser world of becoming or physical appearances, ignorance, the battle between ignorance and wisdom, the war on the mind that has been the hallmark of the human species up until now. We can predict there is this section of the map we haven't yet accounted for. That's analogy. Analogy is how we think, but also allows us to move into the next stage. Because in analogy, the idea is, while the terms can change, the principles stay the same. So you can look at what you can see and analogously anticipate or predict or prepare for the same relations, but at a different kind of a way. Same and difference, like and unlike, those principles of understanding applied to lesser, greater, and ultimate. For there to be greater and lesser, for there to be the true model of knowing and understanding, and the lesser or false belief and materialism, there has to be some principle or cause for model and copy, for greater and lesser, for truth and false. The word that we're using, ultimate. Allowing us to say, hey, if this is ignorance down here, the lesser, this is wisdom here, the greater, we can predict or anticipate the next phase of humankind. The ultimate. Some sort of model and activity, some version of ousia and logos that's not eternity ousia, your mind knowing everything all at once. It's even more immediate because there are no qualities, because qualities require parts, and here we see this is the whole, or the greater, and the parts, but we're talking about the part of the whole that isn't touched by the parts in this Venn diagram. It's the part of same that's not different. It's the part of out of time that's not in time, and all of those other pairs. Allowing us to reflect or use our understanding to wonder about the model of our ultimate goal, knowing the self. Why self? Because self and other also explain these two greater and lesser circles in the Venn diagram. The ultimate state of mankind. But hang on a second. If God or the divine is usually thought about as in here, this would be the ultimate kind of God. So it's the ultimate cause of even the model of everything. So mankind's next stage of evolution, after we go from belief into understanding, allowing us to do the two things we need to do, purify the cause of our ignorance and suffering, and perfect our understanding and wisdom. After we do that, after we remove our problems and perfect our wisdom, we can move into our ultimate stage here. That we can use this amazing map to understand and anticipate. Sexy enlightenment, yes, we're going to get to that. Going to get to that. Right, in chat, isn't the point of enlightenment to get away from suffering by seeing things unsexy, so there is no attachments to and to reject humanity as a whole? Yes, that is a thought that people have about Socrates. I thought you're supposed to reject humanity. I thought you're supposed to reject the physical. If our physical senses and our addiction to physical pleasures is the cause of our problems, I thought you're supposed to reject it, so that we can separate our consciousness from our physical senses, enter into the realm of truth being, where we can perfect our understanding and our activity, our ousia and logos, and experience bliss. I don't know why people don't see that humankind is itself divinity and rejection causes resistance. But desires are part of knowing how to balance oneself and to repress that leads problems later down the line. So we want to gain a question from our reflections. That was really nice. But we want to make sure that the answer to our questions doesn't come from the opinions we already carry, because the opinions we already carry contain our false beliefs of self and reality. So if we just use our own opinions and beliefs to answer our questions, we stay stuck in our repeating cycles of problems. So take what your answer to that question and derive from it the question, boil down the question, what's the question? And nail down your if. Those are the two things we do as philosophers. That's the hero's journey. So take your answer to the question and structure it into a dialectic. There are 4 stages: self to self, self to others, others to others, and others to self. And you have 2 parts: if it does exist and if it doesn't exist. So if you have an answer, if my answer is right, but if I live in a universe where my answer is wrong. That's the game. That's learning. You're perfecting your understanding. But also you can see, hey, if you look over your current answers, you'll know that some of your answer fits into a definition. Some talks about how that definition functions or demonstrates. Some is the implications of that functioning, and some is the conclusion. Your job is to take your reflection and put it into these categories. You'll also know that in your attempted answer, there are also some stuff that doesn't fit. Calling yourself stupid, calling yourself monkey brain, putting yourself down, all that sort of stuff. Notice, different kind of a thing. You're not talking about an answer to the question, you're talking about your image of yourself. Do you see how that's a tangent? By going through this activity of putting your opinions into this dialectic, you're also, it's like a sieve. You're also separating all of these other false beliefs and opinions about yourself and reality that diminish yourself, and you need that too. Our human quest, the meaning of life, the thing that we're here to do, is twofold: to purify our false beliefs of self and reality, and perfect our understanding through the dialectic and having a question about the truth of self and reality, and use the text to answer it. So all of the stuff that you can see doesn't fit into your hypothesis, write down, take notes of. That's gold. If it's not true, or it's not relevant, or it's a tangent, why did it come up? To sap energy away? To diminish your question? To diminish your ability to answer the question? Notice it can only function negatively. Now, you won't do that. You won't do what I just said. Because human beings think they know better. They think they know already. Oh, I don't have to take notes about that. I don't have to do a dialectic on what I just said. Not for me. That's the catch-22. If we're describing the literal activity human beings are here to do, and the only thing we're here to do, because it's the only thing we can take with us, our nailing down our thinking through the dialectic and giving birth to these questions and holding on to them, and you can't hold them on to them at all times unless you nail them down. Therefore, a kind of learning and a kind of nurture, the only things you can take with you as your soul. Why is it that no one will do what I say? Well, what is being, it's not me saying it, it's being said. Because the nature of human problems is we already think we know better. I already have a model of what's true about beauty and sexuality and pleasure. I'm already comfortable with how I go through life. I've got my mask, I've got my way of doing stuff. I'll say something profound, and then I'll call myself stupid, and then people won't be so mean to me, and that's my mask, and that gets me by, and I'm never gonna give that up. That's what we have to get around. It's the cause of not just your problems, every human being's problem. Our question is, how do we get people to give up their certainty and play the game they're here to play? One way is a goal. Doesn't matter how rational this model is, how accurate it is, how all-encompassing it is, how accurately it reflects the text, how verifiable it is. Unless you have something personally meaningful that motivates yourself to become courageous, to do something new, to give up your old ways of being, to drop your masks, no one will do it. Only when you have a goal that's so meaningful that you are willing to go through this. It's fun anyway, by the way. It's challenging because it goes against your family tradition and your masks, but it's still the best game in town. It's the only real game in town. Everything we do is it anyway, just a shit version. You're still meditating on a model. You're still doing a dialectic. It's only a self-fulfilling prophecy that justifies your masks and false beliefs that you don't even know you have. You just think it's real because that's what it is. A false belief of self and reality. You think it's you. You think it's real. You don't even know how to distinguish it from the real thing. Like it's obviously real. It's obviously me. It's obviously this is real. That's what a belief is. That's why it's the most powerful force. People have had enlightenment experiences of the truth of reality. Give them a week, they're back into their problems. You have these experiences in dreams. You don't remember them when you wake up, unless you're doing dream analysis. That's the power of human ignorance. But if we have a goal that's so meaningful that as we climb the steps to reach that goal, when we do hit these blocks of certainty, our goal is so meaningful and inspiring and beautiful, and we love it so much, we desire it so much, we need that to go through the activity of doing something new to challenge that block. So think about every anime. The main character has blocks that he goes through over and over again. Naruto always gets into problems. He always gets hot-headed, or he always gets lonely, until his goal of being Hokage or saving Sakura becomes so powerful. The main character in every anime has to be so motivated that he busts through the wall of enemies. He reaches another level. He transcends to a higher functioning. He sees himself differently. I'm no longer poor Naruto the victim. I'm now a true ninja. Whether it's Harry Potter or Luke Skywalker or any anime, Naruto or anyone, they need that motivation to push through their old patterns. All of those things are a mythological representation of what we're talking about here. This giving birth to a question and carrying it, so nailing it down, honing it up like a gem, or honing it like a laser beam to our question so we can carry it at all times, putting us in a certain state of mind, wondering about that question. Notice, it circumvents the certainty of your problem. Your false, I know no one will like me ever. I'm just Naruto. I'm the bad kid and I know it. And everything I do just proves it. I do graffiti and everyone shouts at me again, proving me right. That's the nature of all human problems, forever. But notice, this curiosity that we can get by carrying a question, a meaningful question, not about gossip, not about physical appearances, but about something to do with these things, these eternal principles, the map of understanding, anything we've been talking about today, a question about reality or self, we can carry that with us. It gives us an openness and a curiosity, and can undermine the false certainty of our false beliefs. But not only that, we need to be perfecting our understanding and how we answer that by crafting hypotheses through the dialectic, which is a training of your understanding. Notice, as the oracle says,
the problem is that you can't reason someone out of a position that they didn't reason themselves into.
We didn't reason ourselves into these beliefs. It's imitation from survival, from when we were like 4 years old and we couldn't get our own food. We were dependent on our people, authority figures, parental figures pretending to be true. So notice, you can't justify your beliefs. That's why no one gives a shit about anyone else's opinions. You say, oh, well, I believe women should do this. I believe immigrants should do that. I believe I'm a bad person because this. I believe I can't do it because that. If you ever ask them to justify their beliefs, they can't. They will refer to, it's just common sense, or I just feel it in my heart that Jesus is true. So what we are doing is giving up baby brain, unjustifiable ignorance, and learning how to craft actual understanding, given a reasoned, rational account by, just as we honed our questions to overcome the state of mind of certainty or the model of belief, so too we are honing our activity to overcome the false model of activity. It's just common sense. Or I just know it's true because it is. Or any of that garbage. Belief. I like Trump because I can't explain it. Every comedy show is like, hey, explain your belief, Trumper or racist or fascist or right-winger or religious person. And then the person hasn't realized that you can't justify belief. That's why it's the cause of all human ignorance and suffering and war and bloodshed and genocide and torture. But in front of the camera, they will try to explain their belief and they will fail, and then the people watching the show will laugh. That's why you can't have right-wing comedy. It just doesn't exist. Because they can't do this. Because they say, oh yeah, our stupid beliefs are right. Gutfeld and all that weird. Joe Rogan, he's not funny. They clap because they agree. They don't laugh because they see the absurdity of trying to justify with understanding that which they got from belief.
The problem is that you can't reason someone out of a position that they didn't reason themselves into.
So, this is the hero's journey. So, in the hero's journey, there is a call to adventure. When Gandalf goes to the Shire and says, Frodo, there is an adventure. You will come back a better person. You will have grown, you will have evolved, and you will come back to the Shire with an ability that no one else in the Shire has when you return. But you have to cross the threshold. So crossing the threshold is a part of the hero's journey. The return home with the special ability is part of the human journey, the hero's quest that all of these animes and movies and books and films participate in. We're doing the real thing. The call to adventure is this. Here's the activity. Hone a question about self or reality from the text, not from your own opinions. That'll just be a self-fulfilling prophecy from the text that we're reading. That's fun anyway. It's a win-win-win.
It's a win-win.
Next, as you read, not using your own opinions, but the material from the text without interpretation, craft hypotheses, which is the dialectic. Practice the dialectic. There are 4 steps, and there's 2 versions, if it is and if it isn't. So 8 sentences or 8 paragraphs. You can even make a script. Take all of the elements in your script, the universe, if your answer does exist, or if beauty does exist, or if reality does exist, or whatever the question is about. And then create another episode, what happens if it doesn't? But instead of using these metaphysical principles, make your own characters and make it magic or ninja or something. So, in the same way, we have these 2 qualities. We have our learning and our nurture, the only 2 things we can take with us. We have our state of mind, and our activity. Our ousia and logos, our model and activity. That's it. Just 2 things. And to circumvent our false certainty of belief, certainty that many people have killed many other human beings because they're so fucking certain in their ignorance, human savagery, the orcs in Lord of the Rings. To circumvent that, we have a question. To bring us into that open state of mind that is similar to the open state of mind that brings us into the knowingness of everything, the brilliant light of pure being, the actual truth of reality. So hone a question and carry a question. Our activity, our life, all of our dramas, thoughts, tangents, daydreams, and our sexual fantasies, our intimate experiences, our sexual experiences, is nothing other than an activity we engage in that makes use of a lot of focused attention and inner energy or power or juriki, spiritual energy or psychic energy or even physical energy. It's all of it there. To engage in activity where we're fantasizing about our model of self or beauty or justice or truth. Normally beauty in yourself. Beauty, aspect of reality, yourself participate in it. There's the 2 aspects. Why is that important that there's 2? because the nature of human problems and ignorance is just two things: a false model of reality, which is here, and a false model of self, which is here. And our true activity is to purify that and experience the true model of reality, the map that we've been building here, beauty itself, justice itself, wholeness itself, oneness itself. But then when you realize, hang on a second, I'm using the word self as an adjective. What's the noun? Just as beauty is an adjective, that's an adjective to describe our sexual experiences or fantasies. We want to go to beauty itself. So too, we want to go from self-beauty and self-justice and self-reality to the self. From adjective to noun. From A to the. And just as we can't have developed a map without two key words, ousia and logos, that also allows us to understand the hero's journey. Ousia, how do you get into a good state of mind? Or ousia, questions, and honing it, nailing it down, polishing it up like a laser beam or a precious gem. And activity or logos, how do you master the logos? How do you practice the dialectic? What's the training we're here to do? We're not here to train our taijutsu and our ninjutsu and our sharingan. We're here to train our version of that, the dialectic. How do we do that? Using the texts to craft answers to those questions based on the dialectic structure. Definition, demonstration, division, and conclusion. Didika. 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 The way to remember definition or the subject itself, demonstration, how it functions subject to another or self to other. Notice, remember how we said the most primary pair of terms for understanding reality, whole, part, same, different, the most primary, self and other. The first distinction you make before you understand something is, that's not me, that's a chicken. So when I pinch the chicken, I don't go, ouch. Self and other, the very first thing. What understanding does is makes use of those two primary things because they're primary. It has scope over everything. So whether you're talking about the nature of beauty or justice or excellence or goodness, you can talk about it, beauty itself, in relation to itself when you're just defining it. You can talk about how beauty itself relates to others and how it demonstrates or functions. How does beauty relate to something else? If you can't see that, then you're not really going to see beauty. By the way, that's still not it. You have to also, hey, having been affected by beauty, how do those things go out and relate to other people? Division. And as a result of all of that, others to others, can you find a key term that you can relate back to the subject to come to a conclusion about your definition? DDDC. And to remember it, just think dick. Dick. Which is how DDDC sounds. Easy. So, that's what Gandalf will say to Frodo. This is true education. It's the only education that will change your consciousness or state of mind. At school, they teach you rote, how to remember the bullshit opinions of your teacher and regurgitate that onto an exam and then forget about it as soon as the exam ends, which trains you to participate as a believer or a slave and give up your whole life and never do what you've been born to do, never fulfill your potential or your purpose and become Lord of the Rings. So Gandalf comes along to say to Frodo, this is the activity, questions and hypotheses. And you know what Frodo says? No, get out of here.
I'm looking for someone to share in an adventure.
He says no. I know better. I don't want to drop my mask. I'm comfortable in the Shire. That part of the hero's journey where Naruto refuses to become a ninja or refuses to change his ways, or Harry Potter refuses to become a wizard or whatever, it's called the refusal of the call. It's helpful if we understand it because it's the archetype. And as we return to the Shire after our completion of the hero's journey, we've leveled up and become Lord of the Rings. We want to help our friends become happy as well, fulfill their potential as well, escape their suffering as well, remove their problems as well, know the truth of self and reality as well, escape the chains of problems and the prison of reincarnation as well. So if we understand the stages that we've gone through, because the whole time we've been doing the activity, logos, we've been reflecting on ourselves as we go through it. Usia, again, same two things, logos and Usia. We can recognize the stages. We can recognize when we say to our loved one or someone we care about, hey, this is what you do. They're gonna say, fuck off. They'll say to you,
Fuck you. Actually,
fuck you.
fuck you.
Actually, fuck you. Me, I was banned from Twitch chat for the Majority Report. Me! This guy! Zoom. This guy. See, can you believe it?
Would you just blow in from Stupid Town?
What, they blowing
If
from
you're
Stupid
experiencing
Town?
a mental health episode, we don't
We
want to have
don't
to
want
see
to
that.
See that, they said to me. But it wasn't a mental health episode.
Oh my fuck.
Gooners.
They're a bunch of gooners. Can you believe it? The greatest injustice of the history of the world. No, I'm being silly, of course. But what I'm pointing to point out, we have to expect it. So part of this book is realizing that there are, hopefully in the same model, we'll be able to also understand the different kinds of rejections of the call. Now, they would always, as soon as I hit something the Twitch moderator didn't understand, he will always ban me. The more profound it is, the more guaranteed and the more instant the ban. Why? Because human problems we've understood in the as here. Opposition to understanding, opposition to the model of understanding, opposition to this higher model self. Now, what does the hero need to go past the first stage of rejection, refusal of the call? After Frodo refuses the call a couple of times, eventually someone comes along and says, if you don't do it, Hobbiton, or Middle Earth, will be destroyed by Sauron. If you don't do it, Darth Vader will blow up the universe. If you don't do it, Voldemort will... I haven't seen all the Harry Potter movies yet. Do magic to Hermione. And Harry Potter will never marry Hermione. Or the Akatsuki will blow up the Leaf Village. So there has to become something so motivating and personally meaningful. True education refers to that which is personally meaningful. That's sufficient for them to overcome their refusal to the call and accept the call to adventure. Meaning the Twitch moderators will never have acted in any different way. There's nothing motivating them. They've settled on a life of mediocrity. Pretending to be knowing by using a small amount of power to ban good people who share understanding or are there to learn. Without any questions, without any conversation, and refusing my ban appeal within 10 seconds of me making it, not even having the integrity to reflect on the ban and peel. That's injustice. No, I'm just using it as an example because it's someone who's on my soundboard.
I'm too pure.
Who's too pure.
Bless you. Excuse you. They're secretly turned on by it.
And people are turned on
Making
by it.
ice cream is a good and courageous thing.
Courageous thing to make ice cream. And that's why we have her on the board, because she thinks ice cream's courageous. Right?
I love this guy.
Yeah, I don't know, thanks. But it's just a simple example. It's easy to see. Emma, on the other hand, seems to really care about helping people. That's why she's a better kind of person. Way better. That's why she lives on the board. Genuinely, personally meaningful goal that's to do with benefit on truth, requiring understanding, and also requiring a courage to give up our false beliefs. Once we recognize that the nature of human problems are beliefs, there will be a rejection of, yes, sexist beliefs, yes, conservative beliefs, yes, racist beliefs, yes, even a lot of religious cult beliefs, but not mine. Not leftist beliefs, not my religious beliefs, not my family beliefs. That's normal. That's normal. That's the hero's journey. That's the arc. Slaying the dragon is to say, hey, when the hero slays the dragon, halfway around the hero's journey, is him having realized that the dragon is a representation of his own personal demons or personal false beliefs that he has been loyal to. He sees he sees the dragon in himself. The very thing I've been mad at is my own functioning, projected, because that's what beliefs do. So to defeat the dragon, I have to defeat myself. Not my real self, my false beliefs and image of self. It's always the same. It's the archetype. It's fun to see once you've seen it. And that's the difficulty. That's the difficulty with what I'm saying and what we're reading in this channel. In other words, it takes a certain kind of courage and character and someone who has a personally meaningful goal that is about a mastery, not mediocrity, mastering something understandable. I want to master this instrument. I want to master this skill. I want to master this. It has to be understandable. Ideally, I want to master this text we're reading, or dream analysis, or philosophical midwifery. Those are things that reflect the dialectic or the logos in the highest possible way. So eventually your goal will become mastering the dialectic itself. That's the ultimate purpose. That's ninjutsu. That's the Force for Jedis. That's magic for Harry Potter. Dialectic. That's the reason we're here. Which is nothing other than the skillful, artful use to make use of questions and hypotheses. Ousia and logos. The two things that we have that make us evolve. More than caterpillars and cows. That's the art. That's the magic. That's what...
There's only two options at the end of an argument.
I'm looking for someone to share in an adventure.
That's the adventure. Master the dialectic. So if you have something within that, like there is a dialectic in music, in art and medicine, all sorts, start with something that's personally meaningful. You need that to cross the threshold. And you need to practice it. That's why you need not just the intelligence needed to recognize this, to come across a philosopher like this guy, and listen and understand and be open. You don't just need intelligence, you need character. Well, it's the two things again. Intelligence, that sounds like activity or logos. And character, that sounds like my state of mind or question or ousia. It's always those two things. So we talked about if this is what we're here to do, and depending on how much we purify our false model and activity, our false logos and ousia and logos, our ignorance, our beliefs and images, and based on not only how much we purify what's false, but perfect our true activity and model, knowingness and understanding, nous and dianoia, to use the right words, or wisdom, is to that extent is the extent to which we go into greater depth of the divine luminosity or the brilliant light of being that we all experience when we die. Therefore, if this is logos and ousia all at once or a oneness, we can make sense of what Socrates said when he said, the greater of the depth you can endure the light experience when you die, to that extent, the greater your character will be when you reincarnate. And we can understand it because we have the map. We can see that the light is literally mind knowing itself. And the nature of that is ultimately logos and ousia. And what we've said is what makes you a good character is your intelligence or logos and your courage and openness to reflect. Especially self-reflect even if you believe otherwise. Courage. Ousia and logos. Good heart, good head. That's why people like Emma are so much better than people like her Twitch moderators. She's using her head or intelligence and perfecting it, and she has a genuine empathy for people. Good heart, good head. And that's who we need to reach out to. Because if you don't have enough intelligence to recognize anything about understanding, if you don't value understanding to begin with, doesn't matter if you've got a million Gandalfs. Oh, what? That's dumb. And if you don't have good ousia or heart, or open-mindedness, or curiosity, or wonder, then you're just going to use it as an opportunity to shut you down. Gandalf will come and say, you need to find the one ring and become a hero. What do most people respond to with something new? They try and shoot them down to score points socially. You're a bit of a dick. Ha ha, right guys? Ha 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 ha. There's someone different. Ha 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 ha. It's easy to shoot people down. It's also stupid. So then we say,
Fuck you. Actually, fuck you.
Actually. Right?
You know, some people would chase a chimp around. Some people would devote themselves to all kind of science or art or experimentation. Who knows?
Who knows? Good heart, good head. Intelligence and ousia. So that's the journey. Questions and hypotheses. Carrying a question at all times is to be on a quest. Literally, that's what meditation is. Nothing else. Now, ultimate meditation is not the rejection of thoughts, like some people, stupid people say. Thoughts are just like clouds. Thoughts are a distraction. Thoughts are bullshit. No. Have your question. A focused, hey, meditation is nothing other than sustained concentration. If you have a question and you keep it, you go from concentration to meditation. Now that's why we have questions about either this map or model of understanding. All of the adjectives that we have looked at as nouns, we see beauty as an adjective. We see excellence as an adjective. We see justice as an adjective. We see whole and parts and adjectives. We have been talking about them as nouns from to the. The reason why we have questions about these things is because if you have sustained meditation, you can join with the object. That's the purpose. So concentration to meditation to contemplation, that's the three parts of yoga, joining. That's why our question has to be with something joinable. This model, the map. And what makes this the complete tradition is, unlike many other meditations or yogas, we also have the other part, the activity, the if. Not only are we carrying a question, we're doing our best to craft the skill of understanding, the thing that makes us evolved, the activity we're here to master as a human being. The skill of understanding the dialectic. It's a win-win.
It's a win-win-win-win-win.
And because we pressed it earlier,
There's only two options at the end of an argument. One, you're wrong, but now you always get to be right about that topic going forward. So you get to learn something, which is always a plus. Or two, you're right and you get to revel in being right.
so all we do in this activity is purify what we're wrong about, or we get to perfect what we were, purify what we're wrong about or perfect what we're right about. But even the perfection is, we're learning, we're developing the dialectic, and we're developing our state of mind with the question. It's those two things. It's a
Win-win-win-win-win.
win-win-win-win-win. So the same map that started off as a map for understanding, that also became a map for everything that exists and is perceived, that then became a map for the different cognitive functions, becoming, being, and the self. The different, let me say that again. That became the map for dimensions of reality or ontology, physical world of becoming, mind or being, and self. That became the map for spiritual experiences. It's either this one, the second last or penultimate, or this one, the ultimate. That also became a map for understanding the nature of human ignorance, the false model of those two things as belief, and as our self-fulfilling activity, where we are contemplating or meditating on a false model at all times, the nature of human ignorance. So it's allowing us to understand the nature of human problems, allowing us to understand what is needed to solve human problems, the actual activity of understanding, became the map for cognitive functions within the dimensions or epistemology. Some people are materialists or strict dualists. Some people are believers. Some people are into understanding. Some people use their understanding to reflect on the map or model of understanding, which is that meditation, and opens themselves up to knowing. Became the map for understanding the necessity of certain language. You can't play this game. You're stuck in ignorance and suffering unless you have the word the, because this is simply a movement from adjectives or beautiful puppy, beautiful streamer. And then I say this. And then I do this. And then I do hearts.
The more holes, the better.
Hey, steady on, Emma. So the necessity for a key word the, if your language does not have the word the, you're screwed. That's okay. Now that you've understood that, add it in. Don't be afraid. Just throw it in there. But people will make fun of me. Well, they can make fun of you in hell because they're going to keep reincarnating into injustice and suffering because they're going to be stuck in their problems without the word the. Necessarily, just the nature of truth. But also, certain keywords that we needed to understand all of this. Not just model and activity, not just state of mind and functioning, not just questions and hypotheses, it's logos and ousia. You need those two words to fit to nail it all down and unify it all together. The map then became the map for the hero's journey, recognizing why there is a refusal of the call and why it's necessary for a deeply held, personally meaningful goal and your character and courage to pursue it with excellence. Unless you want to save the princess, if you're a Mario. Oh, that's a bad example. Unless you want to save Hermione. I think that's, I'm not sure, I don't know much about Harry Potter, but Emma Watson, right? Is she the princess? Unless you really want to marry Emma Watson and save Hermione, unless you really want to save the Leaf Village and become Hokage, unless you really want to, what's another? You get it. Pick any, whatever. Save the universe from Darth Vader. You won't have the stakes and the personal motivation and inspiration to accept the call to adventure and start doing things differently, play a new game, and sacrifice your old way of being for this, and have the courage to be empty, give up all of your past tricks, your mask that gave you a way of relating to others and dealing with things. So it became a model for the hero's journey, became a model for what we need to do to become the main character, the MC, to fulfill your purpose, questions and hypotheses. But also it gives us one more thing. Oh, and by the way, we went on to realize that this map, the ultimate or self, which is without qualities, that somehow is so perfect it reflects into all qualities all at once, the penultimate spiritual experience. And that's the model for understanding, that we perfect our understanding by reflecting on. And that somehow creates the physical world. And as human beings, there's another step of creation where we create our shitty beliefs, a false image of this whole map. How do these levels work? Time. This whole map also fits into time, because just for there to be motion or movement in time, just like in a film strip, there has to be an instant where there's no qualities. There's our ultimate or self, or the ultimate God without qualities. There has to be some model or map of everything, eternity, so out of time in a different way, not transcending time, but out of time in an eternal way that it accounts for everything in time, everything all at once, to quote the name of that movie. So there's our model, there's our penultimate experience or mind, the shadow of the instant, the shadow of the self, that the self instantly knows to create every moment at each microsecond. That's the physical. So there are our three dimensions: the now, or the physical world of becoming, that we see the illusion of time because it's a flashing sort of a thing, just like a film strip, like your eye takes pictures a bunch of times in a second. So just as a movie, just as your eye, so to reality. So now we can see that this whole map we've been developing that explains the dimensions and our evolution and our cognitive stages of growth you can experience growth at any time, because it also fits into the map of time. In other words, there's a potential you don't have to wait till you die to experience the brilliant light of being. It's every instant. There is an emerging from the instant into the now and then a returning. Just as there is a experience of a brilliant light of being as you reincarnate, and then there's a returning through the brilliant light of being as you reincarnate into the next lifetime. Analogy, as above, so below. Meaning, you have a potential to reach your goal to become a Jedi, to become Lord of the Rings at every moment. So it's not just a theoretical map, it's something you can participate in simply to the extent you've been playing this game. You've been doing your job as a Jedi, as a chosen one, to master your questions and hypotheses, to master the dialectic, to purify your fake model or ignorance, and perfect your understanding by this kind of reflection and this kind of reading we're doing, which is reading without projecting, reading without interpretation. But there's one more thing we get out of a map, not just explaining everything. Pretty good maps. I mean, seriously though, how goddamn good is this map? When we say this book is a banger, can you see why? Map of dimensions and evolution and human problems and what's needed to solve them, and also why it's difficult to share this, why there is that belief is in opposition to benefit and understanding, why it's difficult to share this with our friends, why I don't have Asmongold's 50,000 viewers when I need to. I need their subscribers. But there's one more thing. Hey, if we understand ignorance is just here, the fake Usia and Logos, the fake model and activity of belief, it's the cause of ignorance. And enlightenment or excellence is the actual use of understanding to revert upon its model and or map to perfect it, understanding and knowing, true Usia and Logos, wisdom. Therefore, we can understand the whole history of humanity with two words: ignorance and wisdom, and the war between them, or the war ignorance is waging against wisdom because of belief. We can also understand, therefore, the meaning of life, because to win that war is to master the art of dialectic. There we go, one word. Because dialectic purifies our ignorance, which is at war with wisdom, and it perfects our wisdom, purification and perfection. Often twos, right? Often two things. With one word, unifying them. Therefore, the meaning of life, if it's some sort of learning and nurture, what are you learning about? Well, yourself, or the reality you're in. So therefore, the two things you could be learning about are self and reality, which is neat because the nature of ignorance is the false belief about self and reality. The nature of wisdom is the true knowing and understanding of self and reality. So now that we've understood the human condition, our purpose with the dialectic, the human condition, the war of ignorance against wisdom, what's left? Hang on a second. If ignorance is the model and activity down here, and wisdom is the model activity here, a map does another thing. It allows you to see that area of the map you haven't yet moved into. So anticipate, oh, there's more of the map. There's this part of Middle Earth that we haven't gone to. Let's check it out. Maybe we'll find some sexy elves. Ooh.
Whore.
Jesus. Are those the kind of elves that you want?
Honestly, on the real, I say stuff like that because I'm cool.
Yeah, we say that because we're cool. I agree. What's the part that we haven't seen yet? This part. Therefore, we can anticipate one more stage, a different model and activity that we are here to move into once we've done our job of perfecting our questions and ifs, our curiosity and dialectic, practicing the art of dialectics, not just learning it, but practicing it, finding good people, good hearts and good minds. Practice it, in the art of purification or midwifery and the art of perfection, real philosophy, this kind of reading, but also dream analysis, because you can, to unpack your dreams is to practice the dialectic on dreams. You take all that learning and nurture. Hey, you've gone through all that work of removing your ignorance and suffering. You've gone through all that work of perfecting your wisdom through the activity, through the hero's journey of mastering the art of dialectic. And because you're sharing it with your friends, it's a win-win.
It's a win-win-win-win-win-win-win.
So what? What are you going to do with all that? Take all of that with you through that luminosity into the instant. Return to the self with that art of dialectic in your back pocket, with your memory of the experience of knowing as well in your back pocket. Take your wisdom and your freedom, take your freedom from ignorance, take your wisdom and understanding and dialectic with you into the instant, so that somehow in that instant, that is the has no qualities, but even though it has no qualities, therefore it's not an experience, therefore it's going to be different than anything else, even divine luminosity, you can somehow recognize in it self. Somehow recognize in it the ultimate nature of God. Somehow recognize that it's one in a unique way, that it's not a oneness, because oneness is this overlap of whole and parts. It's a one without qualities. It's a good without qualities. It's a true without qualities. It's the self in the instant. So, somehow recognize through a purification of a false ousia and logos, model and activity, state of mind and understanding, a perfection of the true state of mind and activity, map, the true ousia and logos map. Now you can say the map is ousia and logos because it counts for both model and activity. So let's use the word map to refer to both our state of mind and our activity, the model and its activity or its functioning. Ousia and logos, question and hypothesis. Map accounts for both. Take this map that you have learnt and nurtured through practicing and mastering the art of the dialectic, the ultimate goal, the ultimate motivating force, the ultimate become Hokage, the ultimate marry Hermione, the ultimate save from the universe from Darth Vader, and marry Princess Leia or something. The ultimate art, the ultimate magic, the ultimate ninjutsu, the ultimate genjutsu. Take the map and the ultimate art that you've been learning and nurturing because you've been practicing. Take the map and the art with you so that you won't mistake that which is without qualities for the ultimate. Otherwise, how could you recognize self? If your goal is to know the self, what are you looking for? What color is the self? What shape is the self? It can't have either, because it experiences those things. Hey, what kind of experience are you looking for? Are you looking for a sound? A thought? But isn't the self what has thoughts? That hears sounds? So it can't be an experience. Therefore, it's this map and this art of dialectic and this questioning, wondering state of mind that's necessary to find the self we've been looking for. Because it's not an experience. You need the map. And dialectic is ousia and logos together, so we could say the dialectic is the map and the activity. So it's the ousia and the activity. So let's use dialectic. Bring the dialectic with you. You need it. Just as you need dream analysis because you have these states of mind in dreams, but you don't remember them, dream analysis allows you to recognize and develop them. So too, if you have an experience of self, how will you recognize it without the dialectic? We need to recognize that this instant, which is without qualities, is still a whole. It's just a rare kind of, it's a unique kind of whole. It's the section of the Venn diagram that's whole, that's not touched by parts. It's the self, but it's the rare part that's the self, that there's nothing that there's, in this dimension, there is no other. It's just self. It's one. There are no parts. It's just whole. It's one. The ultimate. The next stage of man beyond the conflict between wisdom and ignorance. Man reflecting on himself as God, the ultimate God, while still being able to participate in both the realm of mind and the physical. So it's the whole of all of it. It's a win-win-win-win.
Win-win-win-win-win.
That's what a map affords us. We need the map, the dialectic and this, to recognize the self. And in that complete absence of qualities, you're not freaked out. Just as we've been preparing to not freak out in divine luminosity. Fear lose. Oh no, I'm going to lose myself. No, you're not. You're experiencing yourself as the highest experience. What you're losing is your cause of your problems. Now, if you've been doing this, you've been trying to get rid of that false idea yourself your whole life because you've been recognizing it's the cause of suffering and problems, and it's your hero's journey to remove it. So when you face the divine luminosity, you're not like, oh no, I'm going to lose myself or I'll die. You've been wanting to get rid of that thing. So that's often the experience that pushes people out of the divine luminosity experience of pure knowingness or intelligence. Equally so, even as you've been enduring that more and more and more, and not repelling from it because of your purification of your false idea of self and reality, your false beliefs, you've also been developing keeping the map, keeping the dialectic, keeping the questioning, even in that, to transition through it to its cause, the self. And when just as you weren't freaked out by divine luminosity, so too, hopefully, you won't be freaked out by an absence of qualities, a qualitylessness, a purity, a clarity, because you got that dialectic in your back pocket. You're not freaked out, but you can ask some questions and you can apply the map. Oh, what are you going to look for? The true model of self, true Usia, but a unique kind of Usia that's the model and map without even having qualities, but somehow intrinsically being the cause of all qualities, because even though it has no qualities itself, its reflection is all qualities, and it's that all quality list that is again reflected down to the physical world. That's our ontology or dimensions. An Usia that's without a turning about, because it's an instant Usia. But also, even though there's no qualities, there has to be something inherently rational and understandable and recognizable about it, because that's the Logos. It couldn't reflect into this pure Logos and Usia, and then reflect into this, where we get our false Logos and Usia, and can develop the true Logos and Usia of understanding, self-reflection and Logos. So if it's all Logos, you can even call the model Logos, then you can't say even though there's no qualities, there's no Logos. It'll be a different kind of Logos, different than any other kind, but also containing within it intrinsically, instantly, all that follows. In that way, we can see how the instant, where's the map of time? How can the instant create every flickering moment so perfectly? It can't take time to reflect on the model and then reason through all the parts to see, okay, Jed's shirt's going to be black again and the chicken's going to be yellow, but then Jed's thoughts about this, he's going to have to carry them with him, and also his desires, and also his problem, and also his... That would take too much time, because there's not just me and my black shirt and my chicken, but there's your dreams and your desires and your problems and your colored shirts and your stuffies. And everyone else's. for all time, on all planets, on all galaxies, in all dimensions, in all multiverses. That would take too much time if it's every microsecond. So somehow the instant instantaneously knows the whole because it's intrinsic to it as it passes through it into the now. Isn't that amazing? Now we need this map to understand this so that when we encounter that without qualities, we can recognize, even though there's no qualities, it's somehow the ultimate model or map. And even though there are no parts, normally we're used to the logos breaking it down through parts and understanding, somehow it is also the logos. Just instant. An instant logos, an instant ousia, all at a oneness, not as a oneness, but as one. So even in this pure qualityless experience, whole without parts, same without difference, like without unlike, rest without motion, out of time without being in time, and infinite without there being any limits. In that kind of one, it's the self, it's also the pure ousia or model or map, and it's the pure logos. The instant, well, if we're saying map is a kind of whole, but also contains the parts, we could say ousia and logos is map. So even in this instant, only with this map and dialectic in your back pocket, so take this map with you on your adventure through Middle-earth to become Lord of the Rings. You need that map. Necessarily. Because it's beyond experience. You can't look at the parts of that experience and relate it to anything else, because there's no parts. And it's unlike any other experience. It's the experience-er, and it's the cause of experience. Therefore, you necessarily need the map. Therefore, this is our purpose or meaning of life, or the spiritual tradition, the learning tradition, the hero's journey. So once again, we've gone from a example of Harry Potter and Frodo and Luke Skywalker and Naruto and Deku. These are all examples, or a example, adjectives to the. This is the hero's journey. This is the map of self that is the ousia or map and the activity. It's the knowingness and the rationality as one. It's the self. So you need the map, this, to recognize the self, which is the next phase of man, the ultimate phase of man, the ultimate category of man. Man reflecting on himself as God through this map, who can also participate in mind and perfect wisdom, and also participate in the physical world and purify ignorance. It's a win-win-win.
It's a win-win-win-win-win.
That's what we've got from this book. 90-something episodes in. Thank goodness. It's such a banger. What a fucking map. Seriously though. Holy shit. If someone said to you, hey, this is a book that you can read, and oh, really, what do I get out of it? Oh, meaning. What do you mean meaning? Well, the most meaningful thing. It has to be about self, right? What about self? Everything. Your ignorance, your wisdom, your ultimate goal once you transcend that dynamic. All stages of reality, all cognitive functions, the stages of evolution, what we need to do evolutionarily speaking, how to solve your problems, relationship problems, and global problems. The necessity of certain keywords, why some cultures have been screwed for so long, because they don't have the word the. And even our English culture has been at war with its own wisdom and development because it lacks the word ousia and logos. You'll say to them, Sounds like a pretty good book.
The more holes, the better.
But I thought this was actually kind of interesting.
He'll say, that sounds actually kind of interesting. How much do I pay for this book? And they'll say, you don't even have to subscribe. You can just follow this dude on Twitch and YouTube, and you can even join the Discord. If you want to donate, you can. Helps. But you read it and you reflect together and you find good people, and it's a banger. Holy fuck. And then the person will say, well, shit, when I get through this and I know the ultimate nature of myself, I probably want to help all my friends. Like Frodo going back to the Shire, he'll want everyone to become Lord of the Rings. And you'll say, hang on a second. Oh, no. You can try, and hopefully you'll reach people. But it will be as difficult as it was for you to get into it. Because the nature of our ignorance is at war with its own truth and benefit in self. That's why it's a problem. That's why takes courage and character and you having that motivation to play this game. But hopefully, as we continue to read or recognize all of the different kinds of ways human beings reject the call to adventure, reject this game, to read this book, which is a banger anyway, and from that book, get questions and hypotheses and carry your Q sack and your F sack in your inventory, practicing Usia and Logos, the art of the dialectic. It's a win-win. Win-win-win-win-win.
The more holes, the better.
These absolute dullards, borderline. He better not. Brain rot-esque. What if a chimp had a cell phone? Who would he?
Okay, enough. Enough from silly sound drops. So, pretty awesome, hey? The significance of the map. Not only does this map perfect our understanding, but it's also a meditation. So it's the perfection of our activity, and it's a meditation to directly experience the model, understanding and knowing, Dainoya and Nous, what we need for wisdom. Pretty good map, hey? But also this map is needed to understand the nature of our problems, belief in and rejection of this map, ignorance. You can't purify your ignorance unless you have a map to guide your reflection. And not only does it account for our excellence and problems and the meaning of life, the dialectic, but it also shows the next stage, the part of the map we get to move into, reflecting on yourself as ultimate God. And by the way, you won't be able to see and experience and recognize that without the map. No, and it's not an experience, but encounter, let's say. So this map also shows why the map's necessary. As the spiritual tradition, the education of man, the purpose to our existence, to know the self. And using this map, recognize even in that which is that without qualities, that it is the model and activity together as one. So use the map to recognize the highest map of self. Pretty bitchin' map, right?
He better not.
We better.
Do a poggers.
Let's do a poggers.
And she spit on him also.
Spit on him?
Calm your fucking tits.
Calm your tits. Pretty neat, hey? Awesome map. Needed for removing what's bad, perfecting what's good, and reaching our ultimate. Win, 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 win. So that's where we are with the map. Can you believe it? And by the way, these are the terms that become the object of your reflection in the dialectic, before moving on to its cause, the self, and also the terms you use within the structure of the dialectic. And the dialectic uses self and other, those two highest definitions of those terms. So that map accounts for the structure of the dialectic, the 4 possible ways of using self and other, the highest duad, and it also is the terms that would populate them. When you talk about, let's say you do a dialectic on beauty, how does beauty function? How would you define beauty itself, its whole and parts? How does beauty relate to another? How does beauty relate to justice? Etc. So this is the map for the dialectic. The map of the map. So that's pretty neat, right? Sound drop.
No, you're not the one that's mentally unwell. You're brave. You are crossing into new boundaries.
Thank you. I thought so. So we're crossing into new boundaries because we're so brave. Thank you, Oracle. Now, let's take that reflection on the map with us to reread this last section, which had a lot of content in it. Yeah, let's revise what we just read with this map in mind. So see if we can make this section make more sense with this map in mind. Let us keep reading. Okay. So everything that we just said about the map, we can have some haters that will come up and say, just reject understanding for belief because that's what we grew up with. And we don't like thinkers because that's how we were trained. Nothing surprising. And then we will say, hey, hang on, haters, look around. You will see the desperate plea for understanding, not only self, but reality, the nature of reality. If you don't wake up to our purpose to discover this map and use it to know self and reality, you will hide behind a mask and you will continue to believe you're making sense by defending what you don't understand. You will...
So like not only have you been wrong on like 3 or 4 different things at once, which is already offensive enough, but you did it in the most annoying way.
You'll be annoying.
Is this chat full of dumb cons?
It's what we say to haters, but we don't say it in such a forthright way. Then Socrates says, hang on a second, Jesus has been following the dialectic for a bit. The definite article the. It transforms the adjectives into a substantive. So it's what we used to go from our physical appearances to this map of the mind, and it's our purpose to nail down and master and perfect, which is nothing other than the use of our evolved functions of ousia and logos, self-reflection and language, and what we need to use as the map for our perfection of the art of dialectic, but also equally so, all of those nouns that we have in this map are all ones, by the way. Whole as a oneness, part as a oneness. They're all good, and they allow for our goodness. And it's the truth distinguished from our lesser or false version. So hang on a second, we're using one as an adjective, oneness. We're using good as an adjective, goodness. We're using truth as an adjective, the truth compared to the false. Meaning we need to go from that to its noun. The one, the good, the true. Or, another way of saying that, self-justice, beauty itself, self-goodness, self-benefit, self-excellence. We're using the word self as an adjective. We want to go from the many aspects of self that we experience in the model of mind, which is the penultimate, which is fancy for second last, spiritual experience. We want to go from that to self as a noun, or the self. And where are our dudes? And Jesus says, hey, by the way, if a language doesn't have the word the, we can't go from the definite article the to the definite article from the indefinite a. And by the way, all of these nouns are foundational. That's why it's the map. The magic map. And we need the word we need the word the. And so there are some cultures like the Hebrews who don't have the word the, meaning they've been castrated, or they've been stuck, or they've been, whatever word you want to point to, stuck in ignorance and belief. Never fear, croissants are here. Which is what we say to point out, hey, just because you've been stuck in the past, like everyone, doesn't mean you can't change. The only person who says you can't change and you have to spend your whole life justifying your belief are fascists and sexists and prejudiced idiots. To them we say,
Fuck you.
Fuck
Actually,
you.
fuck
actually,
you.
actually,
But I thought this was actually kind of interesting.
actually. And it's actually interesting when you change. Add the word the in. I'm hate. I hope there is at least another hour in the tank. Late. Hey, Reclusy. Not hate, fuck.
Dude, suck my dick.
That wasn't to you.
If you don't know, now you know.
If you don't know, now you know. I'm gonna be here for another hour, I suppose. Yeah, I can hang out for an hour if I've got some viewers. I cherish my chatters. I don't have the 50,000 Asmon Gold or Hassan Piker. That is. So, time for croissants, meaning we don't have an English word for croissant, but if you don't have the word, you can't order the delicious treat. Meaning, just use the French word, make it an English word, and we have. It's a win-win.
It's a win-win-win-win-win.
They don't have the philosophical takes you get here, so fuck 50k. To them we say,
Just shut the fuck up forever. Just shut the fuck up. Just forever.
all of them people can do that forever. Right.
You're going around doing that in the weirdo pool. That's you.
We are. That's a bit us in the weirdo pool a little bit. So, use the word. Just add it in. Use the word the. We've also been reflecting on the map and how we also need the word usia and logos. Add those words into. Socrates says, "Are you saying that?" Let's bring him in. Are you saying the Hebrew language does not have this magical term, the? Good heavens! That must mean such a language will have great difficulty comprehending our Hellenic philosophy, or what we're also calling the quest of man. The hero's journey. As Gandalf says to them,
I'm looking for someone to share in an adventure.
they'll have a lot of difficulty even understanding what the adventure is. Because they don't have a word for ring, one ring. If you can't express it, you can't think it. If you can't express croissant, you can't eat the croissant. Where are our dudes? So without the word the, they'll have difficulty comprehending the task of man. That feels kind of whack. Yeah, it sucks. Sucks. Like they have another, I mean, we all have false beliefs from childhood that we are here to overcome. But being born in I think Russians don't have the word the as well. I think, Hebrews don't have, there are a bunch of cultures that don't have the word the. So they've got another difficulty to overcome. Now, we don't have the word usia and logos, which is essential as well. So we have difficulties as well, even in English. And even the words understanding and knowing we use in reference to the physical world, which is not the real word. So we have to kind of use the word dianoia and nous. Because when we say knowing, we mean knowing everything all at once, eternity, the whole of all parts. All of time at once, out of time. So we use the word nous, and understanding, of course, is understanding the model, understanding the forces, the principles, the conditions, or the map, this stuff. So nous and dianoia helps. But you're right, it does kind of suck if you were born Hebrew or Russian without the word the. But, you know, we didn't have the word croissant, but we added it in, and now we can enjoy a lovely, delicious treat. Some of my questions are going to be misguided because I'm late, so I apologize for that. The main Greek work I personally care about that we can't translate is Energia. Ooh, can you tell me? I'm not familiar with Energia. Can you tell me about that one? I think I'll catch up quick. I'm familiar with Greek literature. Oh, neat. And there are also previous episodes. I think we're 90 episodes into reading this particular book. You can catch up on YouTube if you want to. Up to you. But yeah, tell me what Energia refers to. If you can't express it, you can't think it. Where are our dudes? Oh, it's an Aristotle. Okay. Right. So what we've been doing is we've been tracing the history of philosophy from earliest times. Here's a quick rundown. So the principle is to know ourselves. You're here, you've spawned into this video game. You're gonna figure out who you are, what you can do, what your purpose is. Know thyself. Even in 800 BC, there was an understanding of the fact that even the worst possible person, Achilles, can go through this process we're learning using this map to do two things: purify the cause of your problems, your false beliefs, and perfect your wisdom through this map and understanding it and knowing it. So even the worst person can solve their problems and become wise, Achilles, but even wise people still have to do the work in finding and removing their problems. Being wise doesn't mean you're without problems. It's two activities. Both use the dialectic. One applied to truth, one applied to false. You need both. And if you do fulfill your purpose, you can become the ideal Hercules or Penelope. Penelope is even greater than Hercules because she is the ideal woman. And women not only have to perfect their wisdom and ignorance, they have to be able to see through the bullshit of men. They have to win the battle without joining the fight. So Penelope had to lay some tasks out for Odysseus to fulfill to make sure that Odysseus is not only wise, but has removed his problems before she would share her bed and her life with Odysseus. Props for this man. I teach philosophy. Oh, good. I can tell you've put in a lot of fucking time into this book. This book's a banger, by the way. Holy fuck, this book's a banger. Seriously, it's amazing. And you want to teach it, I really appreciate it. Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's the best thing we can do. This map that we've been developing simply from reading this book, and by reading I mean reading without interpretation. So a lot of reflection, taking our time, going over it, finding questions, using the text to answer those questions, unlocking deeper questions. It's like a video game. That's how profound this book is. Because it's been written by someone who is Hercules, someone who's finished their job, like gone through this themselves. So Hercules and Penelope, 800 BC. In that tradition, in that culture, the earliest philosopher we have some text from is Xenophanes. He said it's the whole self that's one and seeing, hearing, and thinking right now. Meaning this goal of knowing the self is what's watching. And seeing, and hearing, and thinking. Meaning it's not a thought, it's not a sound, it's not a sight, but it's, even though it's the most profound and transcendent, it's also the most personal and immediate. Xenophanes taught Parmenides, so around 400, 350, around 380 BC by now. You can't do that. You can't know the nature of ultimate God or self through purifying your problems and perfecting your wisdom without the skill to do it, the dialectic. You need the dialectic, says Parmenides, who was Xenophanes' student. Around the same time was a lady named Diotima, so we can sort of infer that there might have been a lot of people around that time, seeing as we've got two bods, Parmenides and Diotima. Hey, by the way, this process has two models that you experience. In the perfection of wisdom, you experience the truth of reality, but that's just the starting point, baby. From there, you go on to reach true reality, from truth to true, or from beauty itself to true excellence. So when you reach the ultimate experience of reality, you use that as a starting point to develop true excellence. And by the way, right, we'll get to forms. Good point. We'll hit forms in a minute. By the way, this seeking of the truth of reality by seeking beauty itself and then going beyond is also the archetype for relationships, love and logos. You and your beloved have a third person in your relationship, Penelope or Hercules. Metaphysics as well, right. So, you won't remove your problems and perfect wisdom and reach that higher stage self unless you have the dialectic. And by the way, this is the ideal relationship. Socrates came along and says, oh yeah, you think that's it? You think there's the dialectic to purify what's false, and the dialectic, which is the structured use of understanding by asking questions that make use of your capacity to reflect on yourself with language. Ousia, self-reflection, logos, language. That's what makes us more evolved than cows and worms and grubs and caterpillars. We can reflect on our own mind and we can have language. So the dialectic is nothing other than the skill or making use of what makes us evolved. It's the skill of understanding, the dialectic. Opposite of debate, which is about opinions. You think that the dialectic is to use it to remove what's false and reach what's true? Purification, perfection? I got news for you, says Socrates, the student of Diotima and Parmenides. So this is the lineage. Homer, Xenophanes, Parmenides, Diotima, and then Socrates. I got news for you, pal. You can't do either of those two things unless you're also using the dialectic to unpack the meaning of your dreams. It's necessary. You won't get all of the clues you need about your false belief about self and reality, and you won't get help in perfecting your reading of the kinds of texts that we are reading about the true nature of self and reality unless you're also doing dreams. It's your guide. And that's where it ended. That's it. That's where the game stopped. We killed Socrates, so that tells us something about the truth, or the logos, or the dialectic. Human beings have a counter force against it. Because we have a false belief about self and reality, it's even more powerful than the truth. So we killed Socrates. We killed Socrates before he was able to pass on those things to his student Plato. So we lost philosophical midwifery, the art of dialectic to remove problems. We lost dream analysis when we killed Socrates when Plato was about 20-something. We did keep a little bit of that, the other one, so these are the three dialectics. The true philosophy, removing the false midwifery, dream analysis needed for both. Plato kept some dialectic, but without the ability to remove his blocks and problems, he was limited. Meaning, while he was able to talk about reaching mind itself, or the truth of reality, or self-knowing itself as pure mind, he wasn't able to do that final step Diotimus talked about, and go on to the actual self or the ultimate reality. Yes, the form of, okay, so and this is another problem. So because we don't have philosophical midwifery and dream analysis, every single translator of Socrates or Plato is blocked. Because they're human beings. The translators are human beings. So the more profound the idea, the less likely the translator is going to be able to see it, because the nature of human blocks or problems is that we project our beliefs onto what's there. That's interpretation. Or we have a blind spot, leaving out what's there or projecting what's not there. So, all of the translators since the death of Socrates have been...
You have the brain of a child if you think that.
Have the brain of a child. That's just the truth. Like it or not, it's the truth. Now, one of those high words is metaphysics. All of them except you, of course. Yeah, but you're special. You're a special boy. You're different. So, the word form is a fantastic example of this principle. So if we were to create a model of what we've talked about so far, we could say, look, we have a realm of false beliefs that has a false idea about self and reality. We have a realm of mind itself, or the realm of being that it's cause. And then we have a realm of self. That's where we are so far, in just what we've just been going through right now. So this is our belief. There's a model and an activity based on that model. So materialism is a good description for the activity. So our beliefs are in opposition. Okay, so this is the physical world of becoming, where we see with our senses. Metaphysics is to use our mind to reflect on our mind and know the map of mind, which is also a meditation on mind, meaning it can awaken you to experience the model, or ousia, which is, ousia is a Greek word that means to turn around and know yourself. That's nous, or in English we use the word knowledge with a capital K. That's the penultimate enlightenment experience, the brilliant light of being. That's beauty itself that we've been talking about. That's an ultimate experience. Understanding uses that model as parts. So everything we use in understanding, when you want to understand something, you differentiate the parts and you put them into a whole and part. Everything that you've understood is the same as another thing. This stuffy is the same as this stuffy in that they're stuffies, but they're different because this one's yellow. So we can get a set of paired terms, whole and part, same, different. But we also use, for understanding, we have a set of monads or single terms that describe its goodness. So while we bring into understanding into a oneness of these pairs, whole and part, we seek goodness. So we have a list of terms: beauty, justice, excellence, goodness, what we seek. They're not a pair. Beauty doesn't come along with ugliness. But there's also a triad to distinguish lesser, greater, and ultimate. The lesser, the false. The greater, the truth. Like greater, model to copy. The model is greater than the copy. The cause is greater than the effect. But for there to be model and copy, or for there to be cause and effect, there has to be an even higher principle that gives the preconditions for that to exist. So we have three primary sets of units or Lego pieces of understanding. The duads for oneness, the monads for goodness, and the triad for truth. That's the use of understanding to reflect on the model of understanding. And by the way, all of those principles, those key terms, oneness, goodness, and truth, the leaders of those sets, and all of their members, that's metaphysics. That's what metaphysics is. That's it. That's all it is. Because that experience of the realm of being, there's a model and there's an activity. So while this is the realm of being, the physical world of being, becoming, everything is in change. So we call the physical world that we see with our physical senses the world of becoming. The realm of being is experienced as a oneness, experienced as a goodness, experienced as a truth. Notice, they're three different ideas. And within those three different ideas, we've got a whole bunch of other ideas. Whole, part, same, different. But it's a oneness. It's a oneness. It's all at once. Meaning, metaphysics is recognizing that when mind knows itself completely, separating your soul from your physical senses, the sense called ousia, the eye of the soul, you experience as a oneness all of the, or as a whole, all of the parts you use for understanding. You experience as a sameness all of the differences you use to differentiate in understanding. You experience out of time everything you use in understanding in time. Notice, whole, part, same, different, in time, out of time. Metaphysics is taking all of those aspects that you experience as a oneness in the experience of knowledge or nous, and breaking them down into parts or differences in understanding. Understanding, therefore, is the activity based on the model that uses logos or language or reason. Logos is the activity based on the model ousia that we call dianoia, or in English, understanding with a capital U. Understanding. Metaphysics is that. That's all metaphysics is. This understanding of the aspects is metaphysics. Theology is representing metaphysics as in mythology. So taking all of those aspects and talking about them in mythology, like making a story about all of those terms which we've defined, as well as a story that explains the hero's journey or the movement of our individual souls into the realm of understanding and knowingness. Taking that as a story, mythology, that's theology. That's what theology is. The Greeks had a word for people who took the stories literally, called them barbarians. By the way, you can take the experience of ousia and logos, knowledge and understanding together. The word for that is wisdom. So philosophy, philos sophia, is the love of that, the realm of being. Known all at once as ousia, or the model, and mastering its activity, understanding, and the method to do that is the dialectic. The dialectic is therefore the spiritual method and the method of learning, and therefore the meaning of life is to master the art of understanding and knowing, the art of dialectic. Now, because what we've, by the way, it's that same art of dialectic, that's the use of the actual model of truth and the actual use of understanding that you can use to purify, different color, purify our false beliefs, which is a shadow. A false belief of self and reality is the cause of all human ignorance and suffering. So we could just say, just as that's wisdom, we could say this one down here, belief in materialism, there's only the physical world, there is no realm of mind, and there is no realm of self. That's ignorance. So the nature of all human society, history, conflict, war, suffering, individually and collectively, is nothing other than the war against mind, or the war of ignorance, a fierce, savage, disgusting, Nazi-like, caveman-like, zombie-like, NPC-like loyalty to our false beliefs about self and reality, in opposition to all of our goodness, all of those monads, in opposition to beauty, justice, excellence, truth, etc. We're at war with our own benefit. That's how loyal we are to our false beliefs of self and reality, our mask, and our teachers from our early clan, cave, tribe, our family members and our parental figures that we are imitating. It's imitation. Why? Because it's based on physical appearances. It's not a reflection on eternal principles that we've been doing today. Everything we said here is eternally true. It explains the physical beliefs, but none of these words are physical. They're all principles. That's why it's the map. So, you talked about the forms. If the art of dialectic is needed to remove our ignorance or our false beliefs that prevent us from actually reading what's there, then all of the translators, unless they've gone through philosophical midwifery and dream analysis, which are two uses of the art of dialectic to remove our problems, they're not going to see this. That's modern society. An example is the word forms. The aspects of being that are experienced as a oneness but can be broken down into understanding are called eidos. E-I-D-O-S, which means to behold. Can you see how different the word eidos or behold is from forms? Do forms imply it's mind knowing itself? Do forms imply it's all one thing that can be intellectually distinguished? When I was at school, they said Plato believed there was a form of a chair in the sky. How insane is that? To that we say,
You have severe mental illness and you need to be fucking checked into an insane asylum.
It's insane asylum stuff. But here's the thing. Forms is a physical language. Physical chair, physical form, nothing to do with eidos or beholding mind itself. Let's go back to our timeline. After we killed Socrates as a counter-attack against our own stupid beliefs, Plato started the academy, the first universities of the West in Athens. His student was Aristotle. Remember, we lost midwifery and dream analysis, so Plato couldn't reflect on his problems that blocked him from reaching the ultimate state beyond. If this is the realm of being, or lesser to greater, there is an ultimate, different color. There has to be an this one. Ultimate, for there to be a non-physical world of being, that's a oneness, there has to be a one. For this to be goodness, there has to be good. For this to be the idea of the self, the eidos of the self, there has to be self. So Plato couldn't remove his blocks that prevented him from going beyond the brilliant light of being, or the eidos of self, the idea of the self, to the self, but so too, he couldn't help his student who was blocked even from that. At least Plato had Socrates for the first 20 years of his life. Aristotle didn't. So Aristotle was stuck down here in the physical world of becoming, what we call materialism. A false belief about self and reality that he was not able to address, and a activity, model and activity, called materialism. There's no metaphysics or using the language of metaphysics to apply to the physical world. Our modern educational system is in the tradition of Aristotle, the Romans. He influenced the Romans. And also the church. Because this idea of there not being a knowable realm of reality, a universal principle that we can all behold, helps if you want to use belief to manipulate people, religion. So, even though Aristotle was rejected both mind and self, kicked out of the academy, there were other teachers in the academy, so the academy lasted until 529 AD, when Emperor Fuckface McGee, Christian Emperor Justinian, killed the philosophers, banned philosophy, and said, no more understanding, you just have to believe me because God said so. Ignore the fact that we're going to completely reject any of the teachings of Jesus and just follow Paul, who himself rejected Jesus. So modern Christians are Pauline Jews by definition, because this same problem of people looking to project their own bullshit beliefs, if they haven't gone through midwifery and dream analysis, existed with Paul projecting his horrible beliefs onto Jesus' teachings. That's why modern Christians quote Paul and not the Gnostic Gospels that we found in the 60s in Egypt. Or Mark, who rejects Paul, by the way. Or Pseudo-Dionysius. Anyway, that's Christian stuff. The point is, when Emperor Justinian shut down the academy in 529 AD for belief, professing the faith, interpretation based on belief, it's the combination of Aristotle and Justinian that's our modern education. Therefore, when you read Plato, they use the word forms. Can you see how forms sound like material things? So you see how forms has nothing to do with the actual Greek? By the way, I've never seen a person teaching a philosophy class where they use the word ousia, or I've seen one person that uses the word ousia or logos, and it's the author of this book we're reading. So you necessarily need the word logos and ousia, you need the word eidos. So just as we've been saying, you need the word the to go from physical experiences of a beautiful thing, a beautiful, a just person, to the beautiful, the just, all of the eidos, all of the aspects of this single experience. So too do you need the word ousia and logos for that activity. So you could say, you could have personifications of this physical world of ignorance, Aristotle, the world of being, true metaphysics or theology, if you mythologize these principles, Plato, and the realm of self, Socrates. So Socrates, Plato, Aristotle. To represent a fantastically, historically, and personally, the de-evolution or the unfolding or the diminishment from the self that Socrates was able to reach, to Plato, who was blocked because no midwifery and dream analysis, to Aristotle, who didn't even reach Plato's level and got kicked out of the academy. Fortunately, 2,500 years after Socrates, there came a guy who, in working with alcoholics in a counseling capacity, rediscovered philosophical midwifery. Rediscovered. That's why there's no Platonic philosophy or Socratic philosophy. It's just philosophy. In other words, if you use your mind to understand and know your mind, you'll recreate Socrates. They're principles that exist eternally. Any galaxy, any race, any time, any species. We're just participating in our birthright. So, recreating the dialectic used to remove problems, midwifery, allowing him to read Socrates in the actual ancient Greek for the first time. First time had we had a person who can read without his own bullshit-ass beliefs being projected unknowingly, because you don't know your beliefs, you just think it's real, you think it's obvious. It's common sense, bro. The first person to be able to read without his own beliefs getting in the way. So, rediscovering philosophy or metaphysics, or the dialectic applied to true, because he rediscovered himself, the dialectic applied to false. In doing so, he saw that Socrates was saying a lot, you need to do dream analysis. So realized that dream analysis was the same dialectic. And of course, as the dialectic has 4 parts, so too can you understand a dialectic of the dialectic. Part 1, the dialectic applied to truth, philosophy or metaphysics. Dialectic applied to what's false, philosophical midwifery, removing your false image of self and reality. Both, dream analysis, you need it for both. And finally, sharing it. You have to be part of the tradition to share the teaching. Somehow, in sharing the teaching, in becoming a teacher like Socrates, you connect with a certain depth of humanness that would have been, you can't access without it. Also, it's needed to keep the tradition alive. The sharing from this guy is this book we're reading. That's why we read this book. So, we can understand the deviation historically into human ignorance. We can understand the nature of human ignorance. We can even represent it with 3 figures: human ignorance, Aristotle; human wisdom, Plato; and human true excellence, Socrates. But also, we can see in this tradition, from Homer to Xenophanes to Parmenides and Diotima to Socrates to the author of this book to you. So you are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th. You are 7th in a lineage of written philosophy, recorded philosophy. That's where you are by being a member of this channel. And that's why we read this book. Okay, so let me catch up to chat. Do you take the world as forms as literal? Oh, right. So that would be, we've already answered that. That would be barbarism. To take theology or the mythological representation of metaphysics literally. And of course, we don't want to use the word we don't want to use the word forms anymore. Just as we've been saying, hey, Hebrews, don't cry that you haven't been able to do philosophy and you've been stuck in your problems, ignorance and belief, because you haven't had the word the. Just as we don't cry that we have to use the word croissant and borrow it from the French and make it our own, so too can you use the word the. But so too can we remove the word forms and put in the word eidos, which means to behold. How can theology be metaphysical if much of metaphysical opposes theology? Right, so what we are discovering is actual theology, not religion, which is, of course, as you have your own personal ignorance, you're false. As you are a little baby in childhood, you have to make sense of the world. And as you engage in this activity of perfecting your understanding to know the truth of reality in mind and to discover the self and master the art of dialectic along the way, the hero's journey, at some point along that journey, you are challenging the family clan ignorance that they got from their parents and from their parents and from their parents all the way back to caveman times. Blind loyalty to inside cave good, outside cave bad. Dear leader good, Trump good, white good, brown bad, scary. America good, foreign's bad, scary. That's a caveman trait, an early evolution before we had full capacity of ousia and logos, language and self-reflection. But you can't just move into understanding. For example, if your toaster keeps shorting out, you have to also address the cause of the problem in your toaster. You can't just keep replacing the fuse. like Nazis. We didn't address the root cause of Nazism, so now we have Nazis everywhere, doing Nazi shit. You have to address the cause of the issues or problems. Clan-based identity. So in childhood, in doing this, because you know what's a threat to belief? Understanding. You know what's a threat to belief? Knowing. If you know something for yourself, why would you believe Pope or priest or imam or mummy or daddy or dear leader? If you knew it, if you understood it, see how they're inconsistent? So belief functions in opposition. So the activity of belief is to oppose mind, to oppose understanding, to oppose knowing. So all of your problems you can trace to a false belief of yourself. It stars as the main character in your fantasies and daydreams, and the topic of today, your sexual fantasies especially. So when you say, I can't do it, this is going to happen, we'll say, hang on, I'll stop you there. Before you tell me how you're going to fail at this meaningful task you've been failing your whole life, trace it back. The image of yourself that begins the story, the fake theology, the fake mythology about self and reality that you're about to tell me, trace it back to its origin. Tell me about the main character. You mean me? No, you don't know what you are. If you knew what you are, you wouldn't be here. No, I'm talking about what you think you are. Tell me about the image that starts the fantasy or the daydream. That convinces you, that's so real. Hey, you might be in a movie watching Tom Cruise, but if you don't identify with the main character, you might get bored and walk out. You never get bored of your own fantasies, your own dreams, your own night dreams, your own daydreams. Why? Because you identify with it. That's the nature of human ignorance. So you are doing metaphysics, you are doing theology, you're just doing it in a horseshit way. Why? Because as you continued the journey you were born to, at some point your understanding and knowing challenges the family, tribe, belief way of being too much, and mummy and daddy shuts it down. Not in this pal. Hey, thinking for yourself, how can you be a good Jew? Believing that you have the freedom to do what you want as a woman, how can you be a good Muslim? You get stoned in the street. How can you be a good Christian if you think for yourself? Understand the meaning of life? No. If you're good, maybe you go to heaven when you die. That's it. Question capitalism. How can you be a good business bro like the rest of our family? How can you become a banker? Want universal human rights? How can you be a politician? So in other words, every family passes on a false belief and you accept it. So it's not a blame game. We are understanding the conditions through which you accepted a false belief of self and reality to gain an image of yourself and a role within a family tribe. Everyone. What have we done? We have used our understanding to revert upon the map of understanding, and this map have allowed us to understand the nature of wisdom and the nature of human ignorance. Therefore, the art of dialectic that we can, which is also the use of the map, using the dialectic to ask a series of questions to an individual who's open and curious, someone with a good heart and a good mind, who's genuinely interested in becoming a better person, genuinely interested in reaching excellence, genuinely interested in removing their own injustice. You can ask them a series of questions that will allow them to, using this map, you can use this map to ask these questions that will allow them to uncover the root false image and belief of themselves. So, while they came to the conclusion, meaning they can solve their problem, meaning all human problems are solvable. That's philosophical midwifery. And by the way, your dreams provide essential guidance. So now we can use our own understanding to see for ourselves why these people these 6 people who came before us said the things they said. Why Socrates said that we need dreams. Why even the model of truth isn't the ultimate. Why we need the dialectic. Why we lost it with Plato and then Aristotle. Why beliefs are so terrible. So beliefs, that's your own personal ignorance, but without philosophical midwifery and dream analysis, without the dialectic to remove ignorance, what will you do? Easy. What all human beings do who are stuck. Look for opportunities to play out their ignorance with impunity. To play out the same injustice they suffered as a false image of knowing, cosplaying the knower, cosplaying the guru, become a capitalist and pass your horseshit onto your employees, become president, kill a few brown people, become a religious leader or a political leader and genocide a few Palestinian, do a genocide. Play out the same injustice you suffered by universalizing your own personal clan beliefs. It's not just what I believe, God says so, religion. It's not just what I believe, the law says so, politics. Which is nothing other than the ignorance or false imitation of the true politics or true spirituality, which would be nothing other than the dialectic. Using understanding to know the model of reality, to map human laws against that model of the logos and ousia, the one true political art. Just as you don't have some surgeons that say, I want to harm some patients. Yes, people who are different than my family, non-Christians or non-whites, I'm going to use my medicine skill to murder them. No, but I believe it really strongly. Oh, I believe it in my heart. You can't be a surgeon. No profession allows you to refuse to apply universal principles universally. And no profession allows you to not use understanding and knowing of the model to gain those universal principles that you must apply universally. And no profession allows you not to do it to benefit your subjects. If you're doing it to benefit or enrich yourself, that's called corruption. You need a model of the ideal, knowing. You need understanding of its parts. You need to apply those universal principles universally and always to benefit the subject and never yourself. Every profession except politics and religion. Politicians don't understand shit. They project their own personal beliefs and harm a lot of people. Religion don't understand shit. They're in opposition to understanding, and it's always in-group, out-group. We are the chosen people. We are the in-group. We are the tribe that's right. You have to obey dear leader. It's caveman shit. In principle. Notice all of the things we've used to develop this map and see for ourselves exactly what Xenophanes, Parmenides, Diotima, Socrates, and Pierre Grimes had been saying are all the use of nouns, no adjectives. We can use these nouns to describe every adjective, not just one person's problem, all human problems, not just a model of psychotherapy, the model of psychotherapy, not A's, but these. Not just a opinion about philosophy, the philosophy. Not just a spiritual tradition, the spiritual tradition. Not just solve one person's problem, but solve all problems. That's a principle. That's the significance of going from adjectives to nouns. And we've been able to do this using nothing other than by reflecting ourselves on the building blocks of understanding. These duads that bring things into a oneness, having a leader of a set and its parts or members that we can hierarchically arrange, having the goodnesses, these ones, justice, beauty, goodness, and having truth. Lesser, greater, ultimate. False, true, principle. Copy, model, principle. All we've done is just put them together in a picture. Looks like this. Venn diagram. You got whole and you got part. If you have an intellect, if you got a overlap of whole and part, you've got 3. There's your triad. Now you've got 3 ways of applying those monads. The false imitation of justice and beauty, pseudo-justice. Injustice is people thinking it's just. The Germans thought they were justified in killing everyone. The Jews, Zionistic Jews, believe they're justified in genociding the Palestinians. The capitalists believe they're justified in stealing all the money and impoverishing everyone, and buying all the houses and leaving them empty, causing homelessness. So a pseudo or a fake or a lesser model of those monads, model of justice, model of beauty, model of excellence. So all human relationships, you seek someone to play out your false model of beauty, a pseudo model. That's why there are so many conflicts in relationships. That's why Diotima was so important. So hey, it's the greater or the truth of beauty, the truth of justice, the truth of excellence that both people need to be seeking in a true loving relationship. That also applies to sexuality. So where we are in the text is saying, hang on a second, if our physical desires, our physical pleasures keep us trapped to appearances or shadows or adjectives, and our purpose is to make use of our capacity to reflect ousia and our capacity to engage in logos or language, to use our understanding to revert on the model of understanding, which is also a separation of the soul from the body to know reality, then don't you want to remove attachment to your physical pleasures? That's the puzzle. Because Socrates was 70 when he had a kid. So he was doing sexy stuff. Ooh.
Like literally suck my dick, dude.
Is what someone said to him. He said to someone. I don't know. Forget that sound drop. I didn't do it.
These absolute dullards, borderline
chimps
who want to kiss a fox.
Want to kiss. He wanted to kiss a fox. And he did. So that's our puzzle. So, pseudo-justice, pseudo-excellence, the greater or the truth of justice, truth of excellence, and as Diotima said, once you reach that, in a true loving relationship, a true intimate relationship, love and logos, you have to go on to its cause, the ultimate. So lesser, greater, ultimate, there's our triad. It's giving us an understanding of ontology or the dimensions that exist. Using logos and ousia or ousia model or oneness and activity logos, we can populate these sections using the monads. Oh, sorry, we got the Venn diagram by the duad. So whole and part, same, different, self and other, one and many. It applies to all of them, allowing us to understand the dimensions. Being, therefore, is the whole of all parts experienced as pure mind. Becoming is seeing the parts. In other words, when you see a whole, you don't. When you see physically, you see the front of a flamingo. You infer with your mind the whole. That's mind. By recognizing ousia and logos has to be in each of these divisions, you have the cognitive functions, belief, and materialism, both in opposition, because if there was no part that didn't want to be whole, it would just become the greater. It would become the whole. So there has to be some force that keeps parts, that keeps different from same. Otherwise, there'd be two overlapping circles. There wouldn't be difference. There wouldn't be whole and part. So there has to be a cognitive function in opposition to the whole. Otherwise, they wouldn't exist. Now, not forever, as a stage of development. In time, in passing. So we can understand belief in materialism by using the words ousia and logos, putting them in. And understand why ignorant, that's the definition of ignorance, and why it's in opposition to our own benefit, why religious people burn books even though they would benefit by reading books, why people are loyal to Trump even though he's stealing all their money, why people are loyal to Netanyahu even though he's genociding people, why people support billionaires even though they're poor, all of this horse shit. a fervent loyalty to our family clan beliefs. That's it. So we can also understand wisdom, the experience of nous or knowing, and the experience of understanding, the ousia and logos, the model and activity. But also we can predict the next stage, the ultimate stage of humanity, some logos and ousia of self. But because it's one that's not parts, somehow logos and ousia have to be one thing. And it has to be without qualities, because it's a whole without parts. It's the same without difference. Because it's that part of this Venn diagram that's not touched the lesser. So, understanding what Diotima said about there being two stages of enlightenment, the truth of beauty and true excellence. So in other words, just by using our mind to unpack the building blocks of understanding, or the map of understanding, we've recreated philosophy. We didn't have to believe anyone, but we are able to recognize other people's stages of development. We could recognize why Aristotle is here, and why a culture that follows Aristotle and Emperor Justinian, the Christian emperor, is stuck in ignorance. Why we still have Nazis, why we still have right and left wing and not one profession of politics, why we have divisions of religion and not one dialectic or one spirituality, like one medicine, one how to fly a plane, one how to fix a car. But what? Just believe me, bro? Start a cult? Child abuse?
A space wizard farted out the universe. All humans are inbred from a single pair of humans, not once but twice. If you're a naughty person, you get tortured eternally in a pool of lava by a vindictive genocidal deity who loves you.
That shit. So we can understand why, so we can explain the adjectives, but we understand Aristotle, Plato, Socrates, without having to believe any of them. That's understanding. That's the map. And also because we recognize that this ultimate goal is without qualities, without parts, we have seen why this dialectic, or this map of understanding, is necessary for our ultimate purpose. People who've experienced the brilliant light of being think it's enlightenment. That's literally the end state of enlightenment for Taoists who have this yin-yang symbol. Because you can't imagine a greater experience. So of course that's enlightenment, because their tradition is not based on understanding. It's based on experiences. Meditating under a cave and all that. Under a waterfall or something. So necessarily, this is the spiritual tradition, because you need this map of understanding so that when you experience that which is completely void of qualities, pure, whole without parts, you can recognize it's also one and good and true and self. But you can't recognize that from experience or perception, only understanding, because it's the cause of perception and experience. So therefore, we've used this map to recreate philosophy for ourselves, identify all past philosophers in that tradition, understand all human problems, understand what's needed to solve them, but also understand what we need to take with us in our back pocket, this map, necessarily to hunt for the self that we're really after. And when we reach it, or recognize it, or encounter it, we have this map so we can, well, recognize it and not dismiss it, or not miss it, or not ignore it. Pretty neat, huh? Thanks for the question. Oh, and we talked about how even though we can do that, and you can do that, and you can verify it, and it's not a belief, and you can use it. And by the way, you won't be able to verify it unless you are practicing it, unless you are using it to remove your problems, unless you are reading the text that we're reading here, or a similar one that we read on this channel, and you're seeking excellence in that. And unless you are doing dream analysis, you won't be able to prove this for yourself. It'll just be a likely hypothesis. It'll be the most rational and the most necessary and the most beautiful, but you can't confirm it unless you do it. In other words, it's a learning and nurture. But today we've also been talking about how, hey, even if Gandalf himself explained this to you, even if Parmenides himself emerged from a burning bush, hand in hand with Socrates and Xenophanes, you'd still say, get out of here. Nah. Piss off. You'd say,
Calm your fucking tits.
calm your fucking tits. I know better.
You're a baby. You're a little baby.
You're a little baby, you'd say. Necessarily. Because this applies to everyone. There are no special boys who are not born into a family. Meaning, unless you've gone through philosophical midwifery and dream analysis, while also reading, while also having a desire to master this text with excellence, while also seeking to ultimately help people you care about by participating in the dialectic as the leader, as a dialectician, you will think you know better. I've got a PhD, or my daddy was super smart, or Jesus is in my heart, or it's just common sense, man. All of the stuff right-wingers say, believers say, religious people say, racists say, sexists say. No, I know better from the school of hard knocks. And we've seen why. Because these function in opposition, and because it's an unsuspected false belief about self and reality, because you didn't put words onto it, because it wasn't a dialectical teaching experience, it was a imitation experience, or as the Oracle says,
The problem is that you can't reason someone out of a position that they didn't reason themselves into.
it wasn't through reasoning, it was through imitation, and it was wordless. You think it's real. It requires courage and character and an open mind and an open heart to even listen to this. So it requires good open state of mind, or ousia, and a good intelligence or use of logos. Good heart, good head. Which is ironic because the greater you're able to participate in being, the more open and intelligent you become. Today we've been talking about how that's also recognized within the hero's journey as the refusal of the call. So, doesn't matter how fantastic our description was, you have to recognize that you will reject it. And be kind to yourself when you do. And say, you know what? Screw that. I'm going to do it anyway. Pretty neat. And yes, that's where we are in the text. Back to the book. Actually, we're coming on 4 hours, so maybe we should wrap it up there. So we've just done a lot of time on the map. We really revised the map, and that's very significant to do. Because that's the game, nailing down the map. Seeing why we need the map, and even to know the self. And then we reiterated the idea of the. In other words, put croissants on the menu. If you don't have the word the in your language, add it. If you don't have the word ousia and logos, add it. If you've been using the word forms your whole life, drop it, add the word eidos. It's fun. It's true and it's great, and just, have a blast. Where's the joy? Where's the whimsy? Where's the childlike wonder, dude? Remember? Childlike wonder, dude. It's fun.
Where's the joy? Where's the whimsy? Where's the childlike one?
4 trillion people are still gonna listen to this.
4 trillion people, maybe. So, need the word the. Let's finish this this banger of a paragraph. Oh my god. Because this one really nails down this. Okay, so it was going to be about sexy times today, but we didn't really get to that. That's the next section. Jesus lays down the gauntlet. Hey, hang on a second. What about sexy times? You said fantasies and addiction to sexual pleasure is a problem. You had sexy times. Even when you were 70, you still fathered a son. Socrates said, yeah, no, it's not. You're missing the point. What if you engaged without fantasies? What if you read without interpretation? What if you didn't project your beliefs? What if you didn't use your activities as a fake meditation on your fake model of self and reality? What if you used your intimate experiences with someone with a good heart and good head, and you added logos with love? In which case, sexuality might not be a problem, it could be a boon. We're not there yet. We're at here with Socrates saying, this is the other theme of today that will name the title of the show, the refusal of the call.
You're a wizard,
You're
Harry.
a wizard, Harry, but when you say you're a wizard, we say...
I don't know if you know this, but like weird dudes,
exist
everywhere.
What if a chimp had a cell phone? Who would he call?
Who would a chimp call?
That's anti-feminist in some way.
Something anti-feminist. And even if Gandalf comes along and says...
I'm looking for someone to share in... I'm looking for someone to share in an adventure.
Even if Gandalf himself came along, we would say, no, we would say...
Fuck you. Actually, fuck you.
Actually, that's what we would say.
These absolute dullards, borderline
chimps
who want to kiss a fox.
Kiss a fox. The refusal of the call. Even as eloquently as we said it, most people are going to say, nah, I know better. Questions and hypotheses, nah, get out of there. Dialectic, nah. We'll get on to sexy times next episode. Ooh, there's a tantalizing teaser for you. Ooh. Gooners.
Cool as a cuke.
Cool as a cuke. Let's keep going. Finish this paragraph. Okay, where are my dudes? Come on, dudes. The Hebrew language does not have this magical term, the. Not even mentioning eidos, logos, or ousia. That must mean such a language will have great difficulty fully comprehending our Hellenic philosophy. The philosophy. If you can't express it, you can't think it. If you can't call it a croissant, you cannot order a delicious treat. This would tend to make people more concrete or focused on the moment, physical shapes and colors, rather than explore the source of all sources. Ooh. The result would focus people's interest in doing particular things. Physical stuff. And gossip. And manipulating people. Extract the wealth. Right? And through this avoidance of using their thinking to know the model of thinking, they would miss out on the power of language for reflection, or as the kids are calling it, the use of ousia and logos. It just might account for the hostility. People saying...
Bitch.
People coming up to us and saying...
You just blow in from stupid town.
1 million.
They're completely lying. Completely
fucking bitch, pussy ass fucker.
The hostility some people experience from others when they seek to go beyond the concrete view of reality. I wonder how long our friend in chat stayed once we started talking about Aristotle being blocked. The hostility when you go beyond the concrete view of reality. Stoicism, materialism, doing push-ups. No, I'm not saying that you don't ever do push-ups, but modern philosophy is Stoic, Aristotelian, using the language of metaphysics to talk about physical things. That's why it appeals to gym bros and alpha male podcast bullshit. Grind set, manipulate the physical world, and do push-ups. That's the height of excellence, which is insane. And to that we say...
Would you just blow in from stupid town?
Stupid town. Right. Keep going. This might explain the hostility some people experience from others when they seek to go beyond the concrete view of reality. The refusal of the call, hostile refusal of the call, no less. Their entry into our Hellenic thought will be handicapped without the study of Greek, wouldn't it? That's where we are. Hooray. Necessarily, we need these Greek words. Lucia, logos, eidos, thanks to our friend in chat, and the word the. Necessarily. Otherwise, you don't have a word for croissant, you can't do croissants. You don't have the word for Lucia and logos, you can't solve human problems, reach human excellence, and go on taking this map with us to our ultimate. You need it for our purpose, the dialectic. Otherwise, handicapped. We've been saying castrated, but handicapped is a bit nicer. So, the refusal of the call. Doesn't matter how often we say it, how well we polish up the map, and how cool we look when we do it.
Hey man, wouldn't some kind of future where people have all their whatever basic needs met of shelter, all this crap, and
Yes.
they could do whatever the hell they want, wouldn't that be good? No,
Yes.
it wouldn't.
No,
Like literally suck my dick, dude.
come on. Literally, dude. Doesn't matter, yeah. It doesn't matter how, even if we sound like
I'm
Gandalf,
looking for someone to share in an adventure.
people will not follow along if they don't have these keywords in their back pocket. Now, if they don't have the word the, even more so. That's why we try and reach out to the best people in the internets. But even them, they will reach a stage where they will be confused and hostile against it, but if they are good people, they will keep going anyway. They will stay in the game. This is not a one-off thing. It's not about being the knower. It's about being in the conversation, being in the dialogue, being in the dialectic. To master the map and know yourself. Pretty neat. Well, the refusal of the call and the necessity for the word the. We did a lot today.
Win, 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 win.
So win, 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 win. Thank you for joining me. If you are new, you can follow along on YouTube and Twitch and like and subscribe. You can follow to find old YouTubes there. You can peruse at your leisure. You can join the Discord. You get a notification when we go live. And if you do want to support, there's a PDF to the text below that you can borrow online for free. And also, if you do want to support the channel, that is a huge, huge help. And there is a link below. And I do greatly appreciate anyone who can contribute. Thank you so much for joining me. It was a banger episode today. And thank you for the new people in chat and the good questions in chat. It was a lot of fun. I'll see you in the next one. Damn it.